Close enough.
Well, I'm going to insist that the pool table come in to be examined, okay?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board. As per guidelines that have been established since COVID, I am going to read the notice to you that this is to formally advise that as certified by General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Select Board will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, September 17, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the hearing room, Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the town website. Would you all like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to move something a little bit out of the normal on the agenda. We have a retirement recognition today for Edmund Burke, DPW Highway, who was with the department for 14 years. And Jeff, would you like to tell us about Edmund?
I will. Thank you very much. Jeff Colby, Public Works Director. And Ned was a valuable member of the highway team. And what we find with highway is they take a lead in many of the highly visible areas of town, whether it's snow removal or trimming, litter pickup, sweeping, that type of thing. And Ned, as we call him, was a critical part of that team. I would definitely call him a quiet professional. He really didn't say much, but he got the job done. And I think he's retiring a little earlier than he'd like, but he's had some, challenges on the health side, so we had to retire. But we really appreciate his service. A few facts around what Ned did for us. He was hired on August 16th of 2010 as a heavy truck driver. And then very quickly thereafter, in June of 2011, he was promoted to a heavy equipment operator and crew leader, demonstrating his ability to get work done, being responsible for teams and working out in the field and making sure that all the appropriate documentation and reports were done that demonstrate that the work was completed. So he has done a great job with that. Shortly after that, he became very proficient as a skid steer operator, and that was very helpful because he became one of the primary operators and then was so skilled at that piece of equipment, he was the lead person in clearing snow, at least from the town staff standpoint, off a sidewalk. So it was extremely beneficial for him to be able to do that for us. We also have that effort is supplemented by contractors as well, but having a ability in-house to do some of that was key to getting the work done. And then in 2015, he became a sweeper operator, and in 2017, he became the lead, the primary employee responsible for operating the town street sweeper. At that point, we had gotten a vacuum street sweeper to become much more efficient in removal of debris and sand on the roads, and he was very skilled at using that piece of equipment. And in 2021, in addition to the lead on the street sweeper, he also became the lead on the roadside mowing team as well. So he's done a great job for the town of Yarmouth, and we will certainly have some big shoes that we need to fill for these responsibilities, but we have a good crew that's upcoming, and we'll be training the next crew and team leaders in that crew to take over for him. But we really appreciate his service. I really appreciate the board recognizing service of employees as they retire. And unfortunately, Ned could not be here tonight, but I'm happy to accept the certificate on his behalf.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm sorry that Ned couldn't join us, but can see that he was a very valuable member of our team, and certainly when it comes to it snowing outside, knowing that folks like him are out there taking care of us and keeping it safe for us to use the roads and the sidewalks for the kids is great. We have an official citation. Be it known that the town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Edmund Burke on his retirement as heavy equipment operator effective August 14th, 2024, and for dedicated service to the town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for 14 years of tireless service in the Highway Division of the Yarmouth Department of Public Works. This citation is duly signed by the Vice Chair of the Yarmouth Select Board on this 17th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2024. Thank you very much. And Jeff, I'll give this to you. And even though he's not here, why don't we give him a round of applause, folks? Thank you. I hope he's somewhere really nice, having a great time. Okay, moving on to announcements. Do we have any announcements today? Moving on to public comment, I noticed that Vita Morris has her hand up. Vita, can you hear me?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is Vita Morris, and I would like to thank Mr. Nathan Ladley for at last meeting bringing out the situation with the reuse of the Mattakey School building. This has been it's almost a disaster considering how long we have had this on our hands, and the committee hasn't even been formed. This should have been done at least 2 years ago, I would think. And so when the students were ready to move into the new building, I think the committee should have had some ideas of what they would propose doing with the building, the Mattakey's building. And now here we are paying over $200,000 a year to maintain that building. It really is outrageous. I hope somebody will come up with an explanation of what happened here. Because, I see that there's an item on the agenda tonight, but it speaks about a process for selecting the committee or something like that. I don't understand that. I mean, it's being put off again and again. I really am, I'm really very upset about this. Now, I want to segue into another subject, and that has to do with the school district and these new increased numbers of students in the district. I didn't hear the entire presentation, so I wonder if Mr. Smith gave you an exact number of how many new students he's got enrolling this fall. But what I want to know is where, and I'm going to demand that this information be provided to the board and through them to the taxpayers. Where are these students coming from? Who are they? I mean, are they, coming off Cape? Are they moving into the Cape? Are any of them choice students? I want an explanation of what are the numbers, and because this seems like a very peculiar situation. I don't know that any, do we know that any other district is experiencing the same kind of increase in their student bodies, or what's going on here? I really would like for you to go after the superintendent and have him come in again and give a more, detailed explanation of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Vita. I notice also that Joe Glynn has his hand up. Joe, can you hear me?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Thank you. Joe Glynn from Precinct 6, for the time being anyway. I don't know if the board has each individually received my most recent emails, but I'm very concerned if you did get them. I don't always know when you do. I know I send them to the general selectmen's box, and then I tried to send them to the emails that I have on record. My concern is with this special election, I think we're doing a great dishonor to Chairman Stone if we don't have a proper election here. I think we're sending a terrible message, especially with the upcoming wastewater and other communications that we're going to have with the people. And the vote should be our greatest way to communicate. And, you know, with town meeting and citizen petitions, but the way that this went about, I thought that there should have been a public hearing, especially since we're going over the 90-day that the charter requires, which should have had the election by November 12th. Now doing the election on December 7th, I believe is going to be a day that live in voter infamy, because what we're saying, we're sending mixed messages about the mail-in ballots, that all of a sudden we're happy with mail-in ballots. We got 6,000 or so people getting mail-in ballots. We're encouraging people to get mail-in ballots. It makes it easier for people to not clog up the voting locations, which I think there've been poor decisions on that all along, but we're still concerned about it. We're talking about having people walk across the road, a busy road that has had close calls in the past, to go over to the senior center to vote. We're doing all this other stuff, but the message we're sending is, and we're disenfranchising all of those people who agreed to, when they asked for their mail-in ballots, they checked off all elections. In the last election and the town election, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is probably the town election where Tracy and select person Flynn won. That election was the highest in a number of years. We've had single-digit numbers in turnouts, and now we had a great turnout. And in a presidential year, it would have been a fantastic turnout for town elections. But we don't care about town elections. And I disagree with the town clerk when she says that the presidential elections are more important. No, they're not. They're not more important to the people of Yarmouth, okay? The presidential election in Massachusetts and in the Senate elections and many of the elections below it are somewhat a foregone conclusion. And I would bet dollars to donuts on most of them. But we're disenfranchising people. We're saying that those absentee ballots, well, we want to do them, and you weren't allowed to change it. In other words, you couldn't opt out of the presidential election for the mail-in ballots. You had no way of doing that, so it wasn't important for you enough to opt out or contest that with the state. But now you're saying, well, the town election doesn't matter, and all those people, I don't know how you're going to inform them, but if you're trying to save money by a mail-in, you're going to end up doing 3 mail-ins, and one's going to cost the taxpayer. If those people who are still going to be allowed to, within 5 days of the election, if you have a medical reason or an absentee reason not to make it, which a lot of those people do, what do we have here? We have seniors, we have disabled people, disabled veterans, and I happen to be one of them. And I've spent a lot of time and energy trying to get people to vote. And I've run for elections purely so that more people would get out to vote and there'd be some competition. And frankly, now, you know, I'm going to be one of those people who say it doesn't make a difference anymore. My vote doesn't count because we're disenfranchising people. We're doing things willy-nilly, and we're going against our own charter, which says 90 days, which should have been by November 12th.
Thank you, Joe, for your opinions. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak under public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just setting my timer. Thank you. Good evening. Tom Nicanel from the wonderful village of Bass River in this great old town of Yarmouth. Back in 1889, we had a 250th celebration of our community up on the north side, Cranberry Highway. There was a great big arch that was constructed, and the words on those arches were foremost in enterprise on land and sea. That was our motto back then. I don't know if we have one today, but if we're looking for a visioning statement for where we want to be in the future, always have to look back at our history. So with that, one comment was I'd like to thank the board last meeting for the town meeting. As you know, we've been doing 2 town meetings for a while now. Before that, we used to be at a town meeting for maybe 2 nights and a lot of articles. Last year, between both spring and fall, there was 56 articles. The year before was 53 articles. The year before was 44 articles. So you see how it goes. So by having a special town meeting this fall is now going to allow our citizens to come out and vote and get back in a reasonable hour, because we don't want to have one big meeting with, at one time in 2019, we had 57 articles. That usually means it's 2 nights and everyone gets frustrated. So thank you all very much for making that happen. With 2 town meetings per year, the business gets done properly. Last week, we also had a tax classification rate, and we went to the factor of 1, which was endorsed by the Board of Assessors. Neighbor to the east has 3.9% commercial tax rate. As you know, we have 4.7% commercial tax rate.
What?
And Barnstable has 44% commercial tax rate. So you see the difference. The average community in the Commonwealth is 80 residential and 20% commercial. You got to keep that in mind. Also, my last comment, a few months ago, we had an election for a select board. The candidates were asked to go to the Cultural Center for a forum. One of the questions that were posed to us was about the Yarmouth Housing Authority on Forest Road. My comment was, I don't believe anything should be built in that neighborhood unless it's built with a collection system. If you look at that neighborhood, it runs from Old Townhouse Road, Long Pond, Winslow Gray, Forest. In that neighborhood, there's 1,500 homes. Put a person in each home, 1,500 people. Times 4, 6,000 people. The average water user, that we all are, uses about 60 gallons of water per day. If we cut that in half for an average and figure 30 gallons per day per person, whether it's sprinklers, leaching in the septic tank, that equates to 60 million gallons of water per year in that neighborhood. And we wonder why there's flooding. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your comments, Tom. Do I have any other public comments today? At this portion of the meeting, I'm going to turn the gavel over to our licensing chair, Tracy Post.
Thank you, Dorcas. I will read the hearing notice into the record. The Yarmouth Board of Selectmen, acting as a local licensing authority, has received an application from Beauty and the Barber, 657 Route 28, West Yarmouth, Mass. 02673, Michael Pina, owner. Beauty and the Barber proposes to add a pool table to their establishment, which will provide additional recreational amenities for patrons. The hearing will be held in person on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, at Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The Select Board meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. Friday, September 30th, 2024. in the Select Board's office at Town Hall. It could be submitted electronically to public comments at yarmouth.ma.us. Verbal comments will be accepted at the hearing. This was posted in the Cape Cod Times on September 3rd, 2024. So that opens the hearing. Mr. Pina, if you want to come to the table and talk a little bit about your app. You can sit at the table or at the podium, wherever you feel more comfortable, sir.
So basically, me and my wife are opening up a barber salon called Beauty and the Barber. And what we're trying to do is, if we have a big enough space, so we kind of want to accommodate the space. And we really are looking to give people, you know, some little leisure, a little time to, like, while they wait for their appointments, to entertain themselves, you know, in the meantime. Kind of to make the place especially aesthetically pleasing. It's not like your typical barber salon, so it's a kind of like a high-end, classy type of barber shop. So I want to kind of make it more comfortable, make the environment more like relaxed. Like, we don't plan to do a pool hall or anything like that, or have like people hanging around the area. We just kind of want to handle ourselves as a professional business. But, you know, basically that's kind of really why I'm requesting it, you know.
Just one table?
Just one
And
table.
it's for your patrons?
Yeah, just for my clients that come in, they can, while they wait for their appointments, they can play pool a little bit, just to kind of complement the environment, you know?
And you sent out notification. I was told that we have an affidavit signed on your behalf, that the notification went out. So having said that, I will open it up to the public. If there's anybody here in the public that has anything to say for or against this application, please come to the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, no hands on our Zoom meeting. I will ask if anybody in the board has any questions, starting with you, Joyce.
My only question is not of the applicant, because this seems like a quite logical application in your business and a way to keep people in queue happy. My only question is, why are we still licensing pool tables? Isn't that something that was considered kind of dangerous or wild in past decades? I am a little puzzled why we're still doing this, but I'm in support of this application.
Dorcas?
No questions or comments, thank you.
Mark?
No questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
I can answer that question very briefly. The Mass General laws provide that process and require us to have a hearing, and they require a permit from the Board of Selectmen. And, you know, granted, some of these laws on the books are a little dated, and so it's all required. We follow the Mass General laws.
With
Thank
that,
you. That's a help, because I did wonder.
with that, I'll take a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll take a motion on the application.
So moved.
Move to
Accept the application for the pool table.
approve.
Approve.
Okay.
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck. Thank
Perfect.
you
Thanks
very
so
much.
Take care.
Okay, we're going to move to our next item. Are the folks from Cafe Gelato Bertini here? If you could come forward, that would be great, and I'll read the hearing notice into the record. The Town of Yarmouth Select Board, Special Entertainment Hearing License hearing. The Yarmouth Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application from Cafe Gelato Bertini, Patricia Thomas, owner, who requested to host car espresso and gelato events on September 21st, 2024, September 28th, 2024, October 5th, 2024, October 12th, 2024, October 19th, 2024, and October 26th, 2024, with the event time of 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., featuring rich espresso, stunning classic and modern cars, and delicious gelato. Additionally, requests to host a live music Friday evenings on September 20th, 2024, September 27th, 2024, October 4th, 2024, October 11th, 2024, October 18th, 2024, and October 25, 2024, with up to 3 musicians from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the deck or inside at 1196 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, in the hearing room at Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Select Board meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. Friday, September 13th, 2024, in the Select Board's office at Town Hall, or can be submitted electronically to public comment at yarmouthma.us. Verbal comments will be accepted at the hearing. This was posted in the Cape Cod Times on September 6th. Just before we start, I know that you have notified abutters. Did you happen to bring the green cards? Did you receive any of them back?
Yeah, I got received some back, and I also gave.
She has the receipts, but
Yeah,
we
so
need.
I didn't receive all. Should I bring it over? Yeah.
When did the mailings go out? She probably has it. You have it on your end, on the stamps.
On the 10th of September.
10th of September.
A week ago.
Okay. All right, would you like to, we're going to take these separately. They're 2 separate applications. We will take the car espresso and gelato piece first, and then we'll talk about your entertainment after, okay? So if you want to just explain to the board and to the public what you're trying to do with that, that would be great.
So for the car espresso gelato, we're thinking we'd have car enthusiasts come by to have coffee, talk about their cars, and just hang out and look at beautiful cars, I guess, and enjoy gelato and espresso. So it wouldn't be anything where we'd have engines revving or anything in the early mornings. It's just people coming to talk about their cars and get ideas, stuff like that.
How many cars are you anticipating, and how are you going to handle the parking?
The parking lot it's a big space, and I've noticed that on Saturday mornings around that time, it's not very busy in the plaza. And we'd send out invites. I'm thinking it's starting up right now. It wouldn't be more than starting off maybe 5 to 10 people in this fall. And if we get to do it again, maybe more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application, either for or against? Please come to the podium and identify yourself for the record, please. Hi, good evening.
Hi, Mark Fallon, Carter Road. It's really just questions, right? It's not necessarily comments, but so you said, 5 to 10 cars. Is there an expectation on how many people, and will, the classic cars be leaving at 10 o'clock?
If they,
First of all, just for the record, the questions are going to come through the board, and it's 10 a.m. It's not 10 p.m.
I said 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right, just making sure you understand that it's not 10 p.m.
So they would, if they drove their car there and they decide to stay longer in our business or to explore the rest of the businesses in the plaza, I think they would stay on and patronize the rest of the businesses around.
And how many people are they expecting to attend as the public?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for her to answer, as she said this is kind of going to be like a little bit of a trial. I understand, your concern, and I think it's a valid question, but I think it's going to be hard for her to be able to tell. One of the things that I think is promising about this application is there's specific dates here. So sometimes in these in these hearings, what we try to do is, you know, obviously we want the businesses to be successful and the neighbors to be successful. So, you know, having a few dates with a nice trial sometimes works. And then, you know, if they come back to us next year, if there's any issues whatsoever, then, you know, hopefully somebody in the neighborhood will make us aware of it and you know, we'll be able to address it then. But I think it's going to be hard for her to tell at this point.
And I just want to say, you guys know local businesses on Cape Cod is harder in the wintertime, so we were just trying to get ideas of how to get people to come in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you for coming. And if you do have any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to them directly to express your concern and to us should the application be approved. We'd like to hear, okay? Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on this? Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak on this application? Anybody
Isn't
from?
allowed to speak. I don't know if that,
I'm not sure he wants to speak. He doesn't have his hand up. You need to raise your hand if you'd like to be acknowledged.
I think that's just because the cursor is resting on that
Right.
particular person. He's
Oh,
not
okay.
requesting.
Okay, is there anybody from the board that has any comments on the application?
Chairman, I just had one question, which was, does the event location have a fire protection system? I noticed that that was left blank, and that's something that I would want you to be protected from, obviously, fire, totally separate from this event. So it seemed like you might want to check whether you had a sprinkler system or not.
There's fire codes on that. Some people are grandfathered based on their use, if I'm understanding it correctly, and the age of their building. Unless they upgrade the inside, I'm not sure that they need to do that. So I would just be careful. I would leave that up to the fire department. They have an occupancy permit, and I would say that that is sufficient because I don't know if they actually would need to do that, Joyce.
I'm just as a select person hoping that it might be a good idea, but I have nothing to do with the fire department or licensing in any such way, so listen to the chairwoman of licensing on that. No, I would certainly approve this. It sounds like a nice way to keep those people with all the fancy cars out of mischief.
Dorcas?
the only comment I have is delicious gelato. Thank you very much.
Mark, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
We have a motion from the board to close the public portion of the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anybody who would like to make a motion on the application?
I move that we approve the application.
Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And now, let's go to the posting is the same, so the hearing for the live entertainment is open. If you want to talk to the board and the public about what you are trying to achieve with music, that would be great.
So we're trying to get people, we have a nice deck, and we want to have people coming into the plaza, have something else that they can enjoy after walking around the plaza, having gelato, so it's going to benefit the entire plaza. We recently had a flower truck come there, and people, we noticed, stayed around longer after having gelato, and they bought flowers from this other business, and they went on to viewing other businesses. So also with the music, this could be another additional benefit to everyone in the plaza while enjoying some music. It won't be a 12-piece jazz band making a whole lot of noise to disturb the neighbors across the pond or anyone else in the, what's the footage, like it's 300 feet distance, I think. Yeah, so maybe starting off with maybe just a one-person acoustic musician coming in to just have an additional entertainment in the evenings. Just another thing that we want to try out again this fall.
Okay. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak to this? Is there anybody? Yes, Vita. Vita, you're muted.
My favorite question in these circumstances, is this music going to be amplified?
No, no.
Well, that, as far as I'm concerned, that was the correct answer. Anyway, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that has any comment? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move to approve the application.
Okay. Is
I
there,
second that.
is there any discussion on that motion? Again, for the public, if there's any issues, please reach out. This is non-amplified. It says 1 to 3 musicians. I think, personally, I think 3 might be a lot. So hopefully you keep it quiet and low and nice for your customers, and not to disturb the neighbors, so that way we can entertain this again next year, perhaps. Okay, sorry, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passage unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You as well. And I'll turn it back over to Joyce. I mean, Dorcas, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tracy. We're actually moving ahead of time
All right.
as far as the schedule goes. The next item we have is an update from Cape Light Compact. Do we have anyone, if you'd like to step up to the table, please, and introduce yourselves?
Hi, good evening. My name is Maggie Downey, and I'm the administrator for the Cape Light Compact. And with me this evening is...
my name is Marielle Marchand. I'm the power supply planner at the Cape Light Compact.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
I understand you're going to be giving us an update.
Yes, and we have a presentation.
Coming up. Let's see, what we'll do is, with this green light is on, we're live with the...
So Mariel Ford, so while we're bringing up the presentation, the first one is an introduction to who is the Cape Light Compact, so I can start with that. For those of you in the audience and from, I know the board knows, the Cape Light Compact is a collaborative effort. It's a joint powers entity that is made up of the 21 towns, 15 towns on the Cape and 6 on the Vineyard. So the Cape Light Compact is the town of Yarmouth and 20 other towns that organized under the Municipal Modernization Act of 2016 as a joint powers entity to deliver 3 primary services to our residents and businesses, specifically power supply. We provide a 100% renewable power supply option. It's an opt-out offering for all of our customers here on the Cape and Vineyard. We also administer the ratepayer-funded energy efficiency programs, which offers rebates and incentives to residents and businesses. It's also known as Mass Save. Mass Save is the brand that all of the program administrators are under an umbrella. So Cape Light Compact is Mass Save. We are the sponsor for Mass Save here on Cape Cod and on Martha's Vineyard. We also advocate for consumers, and basically that means we participate in many Department of Public Utilities regulatory proceedings to represent the interests of ratepayers here in Boston, so that we have a seat at the table, so to speak, in regulatory proceedings that affect our electric rates. So The next slide, and I'm going to start by just going back, giving a summary of what passed and then taking us forward. And then we're going to end with, you asked us to talk about energy markets in general. So we'll share what our knowledge and our understanding with you of what's happening out there. So this slide shows you a snapshot of who's participated in the energy efficiency programs in 2023. The compact operates on a calendar year, so we file our reports in August, so this reflects who's participated since 2023. Specifically, we've had 215 low-income customers, residential, over 1,000 residential customers, and 136 businesses, a total of 1,580 customers. And when I talk about a customer, I'm talking about an electric account. So over almost 1,600 customers have participated, and we've returned in rebates and incentives a little over $3.1 million to Yarmouth residents and businesses in calendar year 2023. Some of the highlights for 2024, this is the last year of our 3-year plan. The Cape Light Compact has a 3-year budget that's approved by the Department of Public Utilities, and we are in the last year of the 3-year plan, getting ready to submit our 25 to 2027 energy efficiency plan, which I'll talk about shortly. But just a couple of things I wanted to highlight for 2024. We are offering no-cost energy assessments for residents and businesses. That covers 100% of, for income-eligible and moderate-income customers, 100% of weatherization, so that's air sealing, insulation to make your home or business more comfortable and lower your overall energy burden. It is also available to regardless of whether you own, rent your home, or your business space. And if you're a market rate customers, that's covered 75% of the cost of that weatherization job. We also have heat pumps. Heat pump rebates of up to $10,000 when you're removing your existing fossil fuel system for a whole home heat pump installation, or a partial home is $1,250 a ton. And basically that works out to be about $4,500 for a partial installation of your heat pump. Go ahead. Just two things, and if you notice they're in yellow, in 2024 we went after and received an e-bike grant from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and happy to say that it is fully subscribed. We paid, the standard incentive was 75% or up to $1,200 for the cost of the e-bike. We also had an enhanced incentive that covered up to 90%. It was income-based. And all our vouchers, 225, have been issued. So it was a great program. I know they can be passionately for or passionately against e-bikes, but they are out there. You'll see them on our bike trail in Yarmouth. So we also have Energy Star appliance rebates. These are ongoing for room air conditioners, air purifiers, dehumidifiers, and electric clothes dryers. And all of this information and the rebates are available on the Cape Light Compact's website. We also just are wrapping up CVEO. We are no longer accepting new applicants, but CVEO stands for the Cape and Vineyard Electrification Offering, and this was a pilot that we launched in the fall of 2023. It was limited to 100 homes that we focused on deed-restricted properties, where we went in and, consistent with the state's climate goals, decarbonized the home at no cost to the homeowner. So first, we went in, did all the insulation, weatherization, and then we installed heat pumps, paired that with a solar PV. Again, so the goal is to totally reduce the energy burden, replaced any fossil fuel appliances, and then a limited number of homes, 25 of them, received batteries. So again, these homes became not only carbon neutral, but were also resilient in the event of an outage for those that received batteries. So a new happening that we rolled out, again, the Cape Light Compact went after some federal grant funds that the state had, and we are the concierge service provider for the Massachusetts Community Climate Bank and their Energy Saver Home Loan Program. And this is designed, again, as I said, for homeowners, and it's designed to fill in the gaps that the Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency program where we don't have dollars for or aren't authorized to spend money. So these are loans that are, on the next slide, we'll go to the eligibility requirements. You must be a homeowner. They are targeted towards low and moderate income homeowners, so less than 135% of the area median income. In Barnstable County, it's 166,000, and then we have Duke. So we're providing services to all 3 counties for residents and that live in those counties. It must be a single-family home or up to 2 to 4 family, multifamily, owner occupied. And you have to generate energy savings. Energy savings are done through air sealing, insulation, replacing fossil fuel systems with heat pumps. And this is a loan program of 20 years, which go to the next slide. Amounts can be as little as $10,000, capped out at $100,000, and it has a 240-month loan term. The first 18 months are interest only. So it is a very, very affordable way to make improvements to your home. It's amortized then for the balance of the 222 months. If you are below 80% of AMI, your interest rate is 0.5%. And if you're above 81, I should say 81, not 80, if it's 81 to 135, your interest rate is 2%. And again, this is based, again, like every federal program, everybody has their very specific details. This is based on the income of who's ever listed on the deed. It is not based on, you could have 5 people in your home that are earning, but if it's only Dorcas on the deed, that it is on your income. And this is actually a very important program. It meets a critical need for a lot of our retirees that are on fixed income living. It's not about who's in the home, even if you have multi-generation. So we're excited to offer this and roll it out with the state. So participating banks here are locally, it's just Cape Cod 5. They were selected by the Climate Bank, but also Bay Coast Savings and Bristol County Savings Banks are also participating in the program. And what the Cape Light Compact does, and the next one will show all of the many things you can do, is we're here to help customers navigate. Our offices are in Yarmouth. They're located right on White's Path, so customers can call, set up an appointment, and we will walk you through the paperwork, making sure that there are now so many programs available. There's our energy efficiency program, there's a heat loan program, there's the Energy Saver Home Loan Program. I'm going to talk about the RUS Solar Loan Program. It can be overwhelming for someone who wants to do something but doesn't know what's the best thing to do. So our staff is in the office to help you walk through and navigate the best way for you to move forward, to make your home more comfortable and lower the overall operating costs of the home. So, whoops, don't go back one. So what's available is a myriad of things from HVAC, which includes your air, so we call it air sealing, ductwork, heat pumps, appliances, electric stove, health and safety improvements, so that we've got mold remediation, oil tank removal, clean energy technologies. You can do your batteries, but you can also do batteries with heat loan. Heat loan is 0%, but this one may have an interest rate, but your payments are going to be significantly lower. So again, we're here to help answer questions and give you as best that we can to help you choose the path that works best for you. Panel upgrades, electric panel upgrades, wiring, solar PV systems. Again, you have to get that 20% energy savings. You can't just use this one for a loan program. Lighting, some site work, some tree pruning. So if you're removing your oil tank and you're going to install heat pumps and you want to install a PV panel, that's a perfect match. But you need some tree work. You can also wrap that into the loan, as well as water heating, heat pump water heaters. So there's quite a few roofing repairs as well, which is also very important. Sometimes people get stopped because they may have vermiculite and or mold in the basement. They can't insulate, or if they've got vermiculite up in the attic and they can't move forward. This program is designed again for low and moderate income, those earning up to 135% of AMI, to move forward with improvements in their home. And then I mentioned this briefly, this has taken us about 4 years, but we're almost there to the finish line to offer through USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Rural Utility Services. We applied for and received, it is a zero-interest loan to the Cape Light Compact that we in turn then lend. We can charge up to 5% interest to anyone who is a borrower. Right now, the loan target rate is below 3%. This is just for solar on your home. You have to be, it's a market rate, you have to be eligible of obtaining a loan, so you have to have a credit score that will make you eligible for the loan. We selected Cape Cod 5 through a competitive RFP process, and they are servicing and administering the loan. So once we have everything set up, you'll receive your invoices with Cape Cod 5, you'll pay Cape Cod 5, and then everything else behind the scene as we reimburse RUS. Loan terms are 10 years, and they're up to $50,000. And it's scheduled to launch, we're targeting for end of October, early November, launching for this exciting solar PV program. So again, you've got quite a few options on how to proceed, so that's why Cape Light Compact staff are here to answer your questions and help you navigate this. So I'm going to talk now, I'm moving into talking about the next 3-year plan from years 25 to 2027. And the state, Mass General Law, we're transitioning from just energy efficiency where you reduced your kilowatt hours to decarbonization. The next plan will be an energy efficiency and decarbonization plan. We will continue with our electrification offers. That is the chosen path that the Commonwealth has selected in order to achieve the goal, the Global Warming Solution Act's goals and reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And basically, what is electrification? It is encouraging customers who heat with fossil fuel. Focus is going to be on oil and propane customers first, or electric resistance, to move them to cold climate heat pumps. Moving off of those fuels to a heat pump will reduce your overall energy burden. You will see savings. Natural gas customers, that is going to be a challenge because natural gas right now is still a more cost-effective and more affordable way to heat your home. Until the state decides if and when they're going to change that. Right now, the focus and the target are oil, propane, and electric resistance heated homes. And again, just an important note, and I'll be sending the town administrator an email on this shortly, the Climate Act of 2022 requires us to stop funding and providing incentives for any fossil fuel equipment, including gas, oil, propane furnaces, and burners. So they're being phased out, consistent with Massachusetts general law. And again, this is all towards the state's goal of bringing in, closing down fossil fuel generation plants, and it all kind of ties into the last topic that we're going to talk about, and hope, their target for Canadian hydro coming down and offshore wind to fill that void as they shut down fossil fuel plants. So the 3 policy goals that we have been given, there's a big change. The 22 Climate Act 2021 and the 22 climate laws have changed how we operate and run local energy efficiency programs. Starting with this 3-year plan, the Secretary of EEA, Energy Environmental Affairs Office, provides us a goal on how many tons of greenhouse gases we are to emit and what our focus is going to be, which was very different from the prior 18 years where it was a much more grassroots up building of the energy efficiency plan. The goals for the next plan that we have been given by the Secretary is decarbonization to achieve their GWSA, Global Warming Solution Act 2050 goals, a focus on equity for those that have not participated or have been left behind, specifically in our environmental justice communities, as well as improving the customer experience, which is what I've been talking about, having FaceTime, making customers able to reach you if they want to do it via email and rebates, phone, or in person. For us, for our audience, we get significant foot traffic because there are demographics of our population. They're not necessarily comfortable in filling out a rebate for $10,000 on their heat pump. They want to come in and talk to someone and say, what is this for real? What does this mean? What do I have to do? What type of paperwork? Did I install the right one? So that they're, and that's what we're here for, and that's what they're hoping to expand in other areas of Massachusetts. So for small businesses, the focus is, again, supporting decarbonization, increasing access by giving different, there's a lot of expanded customer direct option. What does that mean? Basically, you'll have the ability to do things online, or contact staff to help you identify things in your small business. Insulation is now a big tool that was not previously available for small businesses. We've also expanded offerings for renters and landlords, bringing more rebates and incentives to the table, so that it's also a challenge. A lot of our small businesses don't own the space they're in, they're rent, so it's hard to engage your landlord when the renter is paying the utility bill. But now we're bringing more dollars to the table because it becomes an investment in the building, which is a long-term investment for the landlord and hopefully a cost savings for the tenant. We're also prioritizing community-based organizations with providing up to 100% incentives for charitable nonprofits. There's a dollar threshold on your size of your budget. Information and the forms are on our website. But again, if a religious or a church organization, a theater group, community, historic building would like to invest and improve their building, we are now paying up to 100% incentives to move that, because we recognize, we heard from the board, and we were able to get this adopted statewide, so that everywhere they'll now be doing this starting in 2025. The compact's been doing it for about 6 years, but it's now being rolled out statewide as a result of our success. We'll continue to offer Main Street events and partner with nonprofit organizations to get the word out about these programs, and all doing delivery of serving our small business customers. So this is our focus on equity. So if you, low-income customers, so customers who are owned below 61%, 60% or below of either area median income or state median income, are eligible for at no cost weatherization for their homes, barrier mitigation, again, that could be panel upgrades, some roof improvements at no cost, and electrification heat pumps. That's available now, has been historically. All low-income customers are served at 100%. What's being expanded statewide is service to moderate-income customers that with self-attestation. So if you just say that you're a moderate income, you'll get 100% weatherization. And then moving into the more expensive incentives, which are barrier mitigation and electrification. That could be mold, it could be a panel upgrade. You have to, the little document there, you have to have documentation of your income, that you fall within the moderate income. And then those three measures are all at no cost. Again, and that is a turnkey pathway, meaning you'll go through a selected contractor where we've tried to make sure that we've got the most cost-effective equipment and lowered cost. If you choose to do it on your own and select your own contractor, the rebates are not as generous because there's no cost control there. And then also we'll continue to offer market rate incentives for weatherization, barrier mitigation, as well as electrification. So again, it just talks about enhanced customer service. I've been droning on, I know you guys about, sorry, but this is our pathway to make sure that we meet you where your needs are. We're here to find out what the best fit is, to make sure that you're aware of all the programs that are available and can help you access what's in your best interest and then works. And then the last is also the focus is strengthening diversity in the workforce. We have a big wave of retirees coming in this industry at our utilities and all of our contractors. And Mass CEC is doubling down. They'll be investing $24 million per year in working with our tech schools and our colleges to train and diversify the workforce so that we have the trained professionals to install all of the things that I've just been talking about. Also, just very quickly, there's tons of data on Mass Save website. masssavedata.com. If anybody really wants to dig into and see who's been served, where the money's been spent, how does the Cape compare to the rest of the state, all of that information is out there. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it. And then we do a lot of marketing. We do digital displays ads, we do radio ads, we have paid social media, all again geared towards, we participate statewide in marketing events, trying to make sure that ratepayers are aware of the dollars, of the programs that are out there and how their dollars are being spent. So we're going to transition into power supply rates. I'm going to turn it over to Muriel, and then we're happy to answer any questions on what we've gone over.
Thanks, Maggie. So as Maggie said at the outset, the compact is the default electric supplier for customers on the Cape and Martha's Vineyard. So that's the supply charges on your bill. You also have delivery charges, but we're talking about those generation charges. The compact has, we supply residential, commercial, and industrial customers on the Cape and Vineyard. We have 3 different products. We have our standard product, which, as Maggie said, is 100% renewable. And then we also have 2 local green products, which have higher percentages of local renewable energy certificates included. As you can see on the slide, those are a bit more expensive than our standard product. Also, as you can see on the slide, currently our rate is about 2.5 cents below Eversource basic service rate. And it is 15% lower than it was in the previous term. So our rate for residential and commercial customers changes every 6 months. For industrial customers, it changes every 3 months. And this rate, this term that began in July and runs through January, is lower than our previous rate. And this rate, when we change it, and is always posted on our website. When we change the rate, we post ads in all of the local papers and on social media. So customers can always find the rate there, and they're, of course, always welcome to call and ask before a rate change if we're able to tell them what that rate is going to be coming up. So to provide a little bit of history, the compact has been providing power supply since 2002, as you can see on the slide here. This is comparing the compact's rate in green to basic service in blue over the course of our offering a power supply product. If you look back to, say, like 2006 to 2009, the compact had a different pricing strategy. We were doing a point of purchase pricing strategy. You can see that there were times where our rate was a bit above basic service there. The current contract that we have is with NextEra Energy Services. That contract began in 2018, and it had the pricing strategy that we are currently using, where we change our rate every 6 months. That contract has been pretty successful in terms of staying below basic service. For the past 7 rate terms, our rate has been below the basic service price. And then before I go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about what's going on with energy prices, I just wanted to point out, you can see in early 2022, there's a spike in rates. The highest rates were in early 2023, the winter of 23. That was driven by the Russian invasion of Ukraine in Europe, which increased the demand for LNG being exported from the US and drastically impacted our electric prices. So I just wanted to point that out on this slide because it's very easy to see. But on a higher level, just kind of what is driving higher electric prices? Why are our prices what they are now? As I said, our current price is lower than it was the previous term, but prices are higher than they were back a few years ago. So essentially, we do have 2 sides of our electric bill. We have the supply or the generation costs, and then we have the delivery distribution costs. The delivery costs are set by Eversource and approved at the DPU. Those costs are made up of the distribution costs, so the costs of delivering power to our homes and businesses, upkeeping the poles and the wires to get that power delivered. The transmission system also has costs associated with it. And then there are a number of public policy initiatives that are included on the distribution side of the bill, including our energy efficiency program that Maggie just discussed, the solar programs like SMART and net metering. There are other renewable energy charges. the electric vehicle program. So there are a number of public policy initiatives that we have these state climate goals that Maggie discussed. These are driving costs on the distribution side of the bill. And then on the supply side of the bill, we also have public policy costs. Those are the costs of purchasing renewable energy certificates to meet state goals, like the Renewable Portfolio Standard and the Clean Energy Standard. But really the bulk of supply costs are coming from the energy itself that we're procuring on the wholesale market. And those costs are really driven by, in New England, by natural gas prices. And that's because in New England, about 45% of the electricity that's generated is generated using natural gas. And the price of natural gas has increased. It's being driven, the increase in price is being driven by increasing demand. As we retire dirtier fossil fuel plants like coal and oil plants, more of our generation is coming from natural gas, and so there's increased demand. Additionally, in New England, we have a limited pipeline capacity to get natural gas into New England, which means that in the winter, during a cold snap, we actually need to import LNG in order to meet our electric demand. And when we're importing LNG, we're paying those or competing with that European or Asian LNG price, and those are significantly higher than the natural gas price that we're seeing coming through a pipeline. And as I said earlier, those prices were really driven by the war in Ukraine and the increasing demand for natural gas in Europe, which has driven our prices higher, especially in the winter. We see the impacts of that. So as Maggie kind of alluded to earlier, we do need that Canadian hydro, the offshore wind to come online. That should impact prices, kind of reduce that demand on natural gas and provide us with additional other sources of supply in New England.
And then the last slide just is, information for the audience to sign up for a monthly newsletter and our social media links. That ends our presentation, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. Let me start with Mark. Any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Maggie, it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming. And I'm glad we asked you to come to talk a little bit about the pricing, because we hear from so many constituents who are very concerned about the high cost of energy. And I think it's great to shed some light on what's going on. I also think it's terrific that you're a resource, such a resource for people who want to tap into these programs. And it's a bewildering array of jargon, terminology, and to have an organization that people can turn to that is helping look out for the interests of the consumer is incredibly helpful. It's very beneficial, and we appreciate it. It's nice to know that you're on White's Path, too, so if you're a Yarmouth resident, your office is very easy to get to. And I noticed that on our TV channel, we're always advertising the Cape Light Compact and how to call or how to get to your office if anybody needs help. So I thank you on all of those fronts. One of the questions that I had for you, and it's sort of a question that I hear a lot that comes to me, people ask me a lot about the increased cost of energy. And when you look at the sort of the two components, the supply side and the distribution side, a lot of people are very worried that the costs on both sides, with all the new renewable energy, some of it being expensive, to what degree is offshore wind having a real impact on pushing prices up? I don't know how to answer that question. I figured I asked that of you since I knew you were coming in tonight. But is offshore wind a very expensive source of energy? Where does that fit within the overall system?
You want me to? Sure, you can take a stab, and also I'll follow up.
And this is not a pro or con. We all know that some renewable sources are expensive, but also, when you follow solar energy and what's happening with that technology, I've talked to solar experts who are telling me that the cost of solar energy is going down so fast that over time that it'll be almost free, which is kind of hard to believe. But people are saying that the cost of solar is coming way down.
Anyway, let Mariel answer the wind, and then I'll follow up on the solar.
So in terms of the wind, Synapse did just put out an interesting report that we could send. I think that I found really helpful. Their findings were that the offshore wind that Massachusetts was looking to contract for would slightly reduce costs in New England. The contracted prices that we're looking at seem high compared to power supply rates, but if you actually look at how it's affecting the wholesale market and the fact that it's really like bidding into the market as a zero cost resource, because once it's built, it doesn't have any operational costs, and they're bidding in at an operational cost. That operational cost is zero, so over the long term, it seems like they should be lowering that wholesale market clearing price, which would be good overall for markets.
That's good. I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I think one of the things, because I've heard this from other sources as well, that the answer is almost who you talk to and where you're getting your information from. I think one of the things I'm frustrated with is that in the bidding of these projects, there's just not enough transparency. Some of the bids are submitted, and you really can't get a sense of what the overall cost is. And to some degree, these practices, obviously, there's probably an interest in protecting maybe proprietary information, but to some degree, the consumer is genuinely very interested, and there's a public interest that I think is served by being far more transparent than we currently are. I think maybe this is a question for Maggie, and that is what can we do to make sure that we're building an accountability in this process? Now, I know this isn't what you normally do, but you've got years of experience here. What can we do to find ways to sort of put pressure on the utilities and the other major players here that are perhaps passing on higher costs to consumers that perhaps may not be warranted?
I think the best thing to do is because these are RFPs, procurements run by DOER or the state agencies, is to make sure that you could go really far and ask for a third party that represents, the Attorney General is involved, making sure that they're at the table when the negotiations are done, asking questions, because, ultimately, we pay as ratepayers for everything. And you're 100% correct, Mark, is that we should know what we're paying for, what we get. Contracts should be eventually released, put on the website. There is some information that is going to be proprietary. You don't want to put your fee so somebody knows if you're charging X, they'll undercut you. Yeah, we get that. That's the industry. But they can do a lot to put stuff public facing. And if something has to be redacted, that's fine, have a footnote, but they can release information so that you can see pricing. It's important to note that, because in my head, I immediately go, oh my goodness, I have a contract for a solar farm in Maine at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. It's a small contract, but now we're talking wind at 18 cents. But it isn't. You can't make that comparison. You have to look at, as Muriel said, what is the wind coming online going to do to the wholesale market and reducing prices? And a lot of it is is education, explaining that. I mean, that's the state should be telling and talking about what's going to happen. How do these contracts impact where we're going, as opposed to just getting a bid, sitting it and looking at it, and then not releasing everything. So we can also advocate to have more public, somebody representing the public, Attorney General at the table who is, represents ratepayers' interest on that. But to go back to one of your original question before I forget the thought, which is there are so many programs now on residential and even small commercial solar. And that is the best way to reduce your overall energy burden, which is generating behind the meter so that you are using and drawing off the grid as little of the electricity as possible. There will be a community shared solar program, federally funded, that will come from the state. It's supposed to be in this year, so I'm thinking probably next year. That will be available there'll be community shared solar, so that you don't have, if you can't put something on your roof, you can at least participate in a solar farm that may be located on the Cape, may be located somewhere in Massachusetts, and lower your energy burdens. So there's the RUS loan, there's the Energy Saver Home Loan Program. There will be the community shared solar. We hope to be able to advocate, we're at the DPU tomorrow, Muriel's up there tomorrow, trying to convince the DPU to allow us to implement the low-income community shared solar program. Years ago, whoever was going to build something, I can't even remember, at the transfer station had approached us, and we were going to bring those benefits into
Right.
Yarmouth by lowering ratepayers, and that got stalled at the department. That's what Muriel is up there tomorrow about, trying to bring those types of programs back to help all of our ratepayers.
Well, I think your advocacy is very well in order and very much appreciated. Having access to community-based solar is incredibly important, and it's great to see that the Cape Light Compact is on top of it. One last anecdote. I was reading a story in the newspaper, and I was reading about a homeowner in Germany being able to go to the store to buy literally 2 solar panels, literally going in there, grabbing the panels, putting them on their balcony, and plugging the panel into their house socket, and in turn having that immediately go into the home. The technology on solar is advancing so fast that people are now in other parts of the world being able to do exactly that, which is just sort of mind-blowing. Imagine if you could do that here on Cape Cod, right? Go to Home Depot or go to a local hardware store, get a solar panel, plug it in, and then get yourself off the grid in no time.
Charge your, to plug up to your refrigerator if there was an outage or a storm.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for indulging me in all my questions.
Thank you, Mark. Tracy?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I get perplexed with some of this because while we're being told that all of this green new energy is going to reduce our rates, we're looking at your grid that shows us that doing green energy costs more money. So since I've been sitting here, we've been told that putting solar panels on our buildings will reduce our electricity, and our electric budget has continued to increase regardless of every step that we've taken. So it's a little bit frustrating, not at you, just at the overall outlook. I feel like, when you talk about public policies, the policies that they're putting in place are generally making it more expensive. So then we have all these programs that try to reduce the rates instead of just reducing the rates for everybody. We have one of the highest rates in the country. And you talk about distribution, we should be spending our money on getting the distribution to everybody lower. And yet we're spending our money on other programs. But, when you talk about offshore wind, we've been looking at this and analyzing the cost of offshore wind since long before Vineyard Wind with Cape Wind. And, unfortunately, the Cape is the one who's taking the brunt of the negativity, but we're not getting the benefit from it. Even the work that comes from it was supposed to be local people. They're all from somewhere else, so even our local people who, they sold us a bill of goods that this offshore wind's going to employ people. Yeah, it employs people, but not our people. The people here in the Cape are the ones that have to see it visually. The fishermen are having to deal with it. We had the catastrophe with 38. That's, I think, and the state doubles down. And I hope that your fruition comes true, that it will ultimately lower it in the end. I just don't see it. I mean, like I said, as long as I've sat here, we've been told with the solar is going to reduce our energy, and our energy costs continue to increase. So, sometimes all these public policies, they just need to get out of the way. And I'm all about keeping our environment clean and doing what we can. But at the same time, the challenge for people, especially in the winter, you see those spikes go up in the winter when some of our people on fixed incomes, they can't handle that. We have to do better in terms of public policy and protecting people with heat in the winter. And then you talk about we're buying Canadian hydro. We're surrounded by water here. Why do we have to import it from Canada? I'm just curious why we haven't gotten more advanced technology on hydro here.
Yeah, you nailed it. I don't have an answer to it. I know that the Maritime Academy has tried some, but it is an industry that I wish was here. Or even we have a lot of dams in Massachusetts.
I heard at one point in time that they were doing testing on the tidal power on the canal, but I never heard anything about it.
It's been a while, yeah. It's been a while.
If I can answer the question, yeah. At the Maritime Academy, there's a test center that's been established there. And there's a Marine Renewable Energy Center that has a license issued by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to literally field test emerging technologies in the tidal energy area. So if you have a developer that's looking to field test a particular turbine in the canal to see if they can generate power, then you can get set up shop there. So it's largely based on companies and universities that might be interested in testing and developing it there. So it's an exciting project. The other thing is on the Quebec, or not Quebec, but Canadian Power is just incredibly cheap. If you have friends in Canada, go visit them in Quebec, and their light bills are incredibly low. I went up there about 20 years ago and met with a friend of mine, and their light bill, this was in December, it was like under $100. Light and heat, by the way.
You could stay up all night.
Exactly.
Well, we got to go to bed at like 5 here, so I
There
don't
you
know.
go.
I don't know.
So the Canadians have really done a tremendous service to their people by providing them incredibly abundant and cheap or inexpensive. That also provides a competitive advantage for them in a host of other industries, but that's another story for another day.
Well, so much of it we're so far behind in technology. I mean, I learned a lot back in the 90s living in Germany. And, you talk about in Germany they can plug in a solar panel. Well, in Germany, when I lived there, that was the first time I lived by the turbines. They had wind turbines far before we did. And I think they learned a lot from them. But in any event, just the total environment overall is just disheartening. And, you talked a little bit about transparency. We can't really even see what's going on. And I appreciate your intellect and, being able to understand and explain it in layman terms, because it gets very complicated. And I know even with the applications for these programs, like you said, just to have a place for people to go. But again, all of these programs cost money, right? Which I'm grateful that they're there. But just reducing our energy costs would be a great program for everybody, and it seemed would cost a whole lot less money. I mean, they pay people to manage these programs, and just reduce our energy rates. I still don't understand why. We're closest to the water, we're closest to hydro, and we have one of the most expensive. The Ukraine war has affected everybody. Why is it less expensive to have electricity in the center of the country when we're at a port? If we have to get LNG from another country, we're right here. So just the whole thing, it blows my mind.
That's why it's great that we have them to help make sense out of it all. So
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to me if the Central America, who's
No, I
not
know.
near a port, you
But
have
they're
to
on our side.
transport it.
They're helping
No,
us take
absolutely.
advantage of what is a
preaching
crazy-
to the choir, but thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Joyce?
I'd just like to say thank you for all that you do, and another congratulations on that rural energy coup to get that loan for solar customers, or would-be solar customers who might not otherwise be able to become solar customers on the Cape. I love being surrounded by water, but unfortunately, our water won't really work for hydro. What's great about Canada is that you've got elevation and you've got water crashing down, and that's the kind of energy that you can change to mechanical energy and that you can actually use for something to generate electricity. But ours is beautiful. I mean, we have lovely water. We do have great wind. I'd say one thing about wind energy, which is when you have these wind contracts, they're at least a fixed price for a number of years, so that in some ways that lets you know where they're going. But the whole question of incentivizing renewables is obviously a very difficult one, and one that's faced under a lot of climate pressure right now, because we might soon here on the Cape have entirely too much water. And I realize that at least one of the people in this room lives quite close to the water, so I'm sure that you're very aware of that. I'd love to see what we could do as a town to get even more energy efficiency business going with the compact, particularly in the commercial area, because it always seems like the compact's commercial area is lagging behind our splendid residential adoption of energy efficiency measures. And I would suggest, not to put him on the spot, that we have an outgoing head of the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce in the back row of this audience, and that perhaps you might want to chat with him on the way out, because it's possible that some interaction with the chamber could bring the kind of energy information that Yarmouth businesses, and we saw some small businesses tonight, might be able to use, and might be able to help them to access funds for stuff that would make their businesses less expensive to run. I know certainly the refrigeration efficiency has been a big help to a number of restaurants, because there was just so much wasted electricity in refrigeration. Anyway, I'm proud of the compact. I'm proud that the compact was started with Barnstable County and the town of Yarmouth, with Selectwoman Charlotte Strubel ages ago. And so I take a special interest in the compact because, I don't know, if the county was the father, we're the mother. If the county is the mother, we're the father. We get some kudos on that as a town. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. I'd like to reiterate that having that personal touch is so needed here in town, because it is just overwhelming as a homeowner to look at all these potential opportunities and where do I go and how do I do it, and especially because a lot of the people who live in this town are not computer savvy. And so to be able to have someone that will say, sure, come on down, sit down with me, and let me take you through what will work or won't work for you, and what would be to your best advantage is wonderful to have, and particularly the fact that we have it right here in town. As Mark was saying, to have it on White's Path, in Yarmouth is excellent. Tracy makes some good points when she's talking about the costs of energy and how exorbitantly high it is for us here on the East Coast. And certainly anything that we can do to help advocate for that, to lower those costs, is just critical. We haven't seen, which could potentially cause quite a bit of damage for us here, a really major hurricane, for instance, has not hit the East Coast. We really haven't had anything beyond a Category 3 since 1938 in New England. I mean, if you look at the statistics. So it's something that could be downright catastrophic for us as far as the energy costs are. I appreciate your updates to us. I look forward to the direction that you're going in, particularly going toward the small businesses. The idea, again, I see a lot of business owners here in town who rent their property, and so to know that there's something that's going to be out there to help them, I think it's going to be very beneficial. So thank you, and please keep us posted on how things are going.
Anytime you have questions, or just let us know. We're right down the road.
You're just down the road. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Chamber of Commerce person is the person sitting nearest to the exit. I think that's a coincidence.
Okay. Update on road construction. We've seen that the construction has started up again on Route 28. believe
Yes,
it's-
absolutely. Again, Jeff Colby, Public Works Director. I'm joined by Lori Rosala, our Water and Wastewater Superintendent, Paul Chaffee, and Lori Sullivan are here as well to kind of add that communications component that's so important. We have rolled in a number of kind of wastewater update components to this presentation, just because there's some exciting things happening right now. You had mentioned the Route 28 construction restarting, so that's very important, but we're also opening up some critical bids at this time, so we have some good news to share and want to build upon that story. So with that said, we're going to cover a few things. We're going to look at the groundwater discharge permit. We're going to talk about Contract 1, which is the Water Resource Recovery Facility, also known as the treatment facility, and collection system contracts 2 through 6. And then, as I alluded to a moment ago, then talk a little bit about wastewater communications, which is important. So the groundwater discharge permit, last time we were here, we had some good news to share that we'd had a breakthrough with Mass DEP with regard to the permit. But I'm here to say now, and that's why we've bolded it on this slide, is that we do have the final permit in hand after the comment period and the advertisement and that needed to go through. That was issued on August 5th of this year, and that was for 370,000 gallons per day. So the good news is we have the permit. The other side of the coin is that's only about a third of what we need for phase 1. So there's still some work to do. We are meeting on a regular basis with the DEP staff to talk about the path forward and what that looks like. And just going right down the list here, we do believe that once the facility is up and running, that we can demonstrate that the facility at 99 Buck Island Road will be able to take more treated effluent in that discharge area than they've currently permitted. But that aside, we are focusing on that second bullet on next steps, which is to explore Bayberry Hills Golf Course for discharge locations, both for enhancing the irrigation that we do currently there with the septic facility using treated effluent on the golf course, but also a direct discharge at that location as well. And the preliminary information is promising that that will get us the rest of the way that we need for phase 1, but there's still a lot of work to do with regards to proving that out. We have to do a number of test wells and sampling with regards to the soils and the vegetation in that area to demonstrate that to DEP that that's the case. So there is an additional funding request. Hopefully we can get that on for the fall town meeting to continue that work, so we can continue to work through that additional discharge needs for phase 1. And as I mentioned before, we're continuing to meet with DEP staff to address the concerns that they might have and demonstrate that we have locations in which can handle this extra discharge that's needed. The wastewater contracts, I've shown this before, but currently it's broken into 6 contracts. Contract 1 is shown.
Madam Chair, just what might be helpful is if we go through each section and then maybe ask if there's a question or two rather than wait till the very end, because I think some of us may have questions on this particular item. I know I do.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So,
Mark?
yeah, thank you. Is DEP asking us to take the rest of the remaining discharge, all of that water, into the Bayberry Hills Golf Course area, or is just Bayberry Hills is one of a number of potential discharge locations? I'm just curious. I'm interested in knowing more where we're headed with this.
There's a number of potential discharge locations throughout Yarmouth that have been identified. And so we're working with our consultant team, which is primarily CDM Smith and Wright Pierce, and Horsley Witten, who's joined the team on the vegetation analysis side, to look at all of those locations. just from my perspective, when I've seen early on in this process that Bayberry Hills has significant capacity, working directly with Scott Gilmore, our golf director, he's very anxious to have additional flow that he can use for irrigation. He's looking at potentially enlarging some of the irrigation ponds there to be able to handle the increased flow. And the thing that I find exciting about that possibility is that that additional flow we need is primarily in the summertime, which is also when the irrigation is needed at the golf course. So I think, you know, taking those peaks and having that handled at the golf course, and then a more level flow that might happen during, you know, kind of year-round flow could be handled elsewhere, such as the treatment plant location at 99 Buck Island Road. So I think there's some good synergies there. Also looking at what the most cost-effective solutions might be. We'll always want to keep that in mind when we're talking about building these very large infrastructure projects. And we already have a force main, a pipeline between 99 Buck Island Road and the septic treatment facility, and there is a connection over to the golf course that we're currently utilizing. So I think there's some promise there, because any of the other locations that we're looking at, and there's a number of them that we're looking at throughout Yarmouth, there is going to be some additional infrastructure needs, some force main, some piping that's needed in addition to the discharge, whether that happens subsurface or with a infiltration beds. That's a component that's a cost as well, but the distribution of that would add to the cost. And so if we can use current infrastructure, that's going to be a savings for us. So that's why I think the Bayberry Hills is very promising, but there's at least 13 other locations that have been identified, and we're going through.
Excuse me, how many?
13 at this point.
13
yes,
options.
that we're looking at and going through and categorizing them, looking at how much treated effluent they can handle. And there are locations that can handle more than others because of topography, elevations to groundwater, and other constraints with regards to wetlands. One of the big concerns that DEP has, and we have to demonstrate that there's no impact to, is vernal pools and cedar swamps. So that's again why we have the Horsley-Witten component of our team looking at some of those elements. And some of those do exist within our community, and we just need to be aware of that and what those potential discharge impacts might look like depending on the volume that goes in at those various locations.
Got it. At our last board meeting, when we talked about the special town meeting, I think it's certainly one of the reasons, the factors motivating me to have a special town meeting is this issue and the need to keep and sustain progress on this. I'm not convinced waiting to a spring town meeting makes any sense. I think the progress on this kind of work really needs to, you know, keep pace with everything. So I'm very much interested in getting this addressed soon, and it's helpful to know that we're looking at a multiple of options. That the study and the investigations that we'll be doing, that would be authorized, that we would ask town meeting. The fund would essentially look at a whole range of options. Most of which you just summarized really quickly tonight. So I appreciate elaborating on that. That's very, very helpful. I think some of us are very concerned that we're kind of, what's the term, getting kind of nickeled and dimed by DEP. And we've already had costly delays in terms of awarding contracts. It's cost us money. It seems like every time we talk to DEP, you can just hear the meter running and the dollar signs going up. I complain about this when I'm meeting with legislators and folks in the governor's office. I'm always concerned about what the state's doing to us and making it more expensive. We're not getting much extra help for any of this either. So that's a real cause for concern. So I appreciate elaborating a little bit further on this.
Tracy, did you have?
Yeah, I do. The saying, help me help you, comes to my head every time I think of DEP. Like, they're upset we're not doing wastewater, and yet we can't do wastewater because they are the ones standing in the way. Anyway, you said 370,000 gallons per day.
Correct.
For phase one. Is that correct?
That's what the permit is currently.
Okay,
We need
and
closer to 1 million gallons a day for phase one. And so that's why we're maybe roughly a third of where we need to be, just in phase one,
Right.
just in the infrastructure that's, we're planning to build now.
Which brings me a lot of concern based on that for future phases. I mean, potentially we're going to run out of space. before we complete our projects. And the timing of it, you know, what I don't want to happen is to be putting, it's hard because obviously the longer that we hold off, the more expensive it is, but to put pipe in the ground and not be able to utilize it is also another problem. So if we don't have the permits to be able to handle, you know, what the intake is, what the outtake is, it's problematic. So we need more money to investigate that. What is the timing you think it's going to take to make up that other 2/3? I mean, we look at the rest of the contracts for phase one, that we've got, what, 2 more left to go after this, right? So for what we've already got contracted, what is the gallons per day for that? When is that going to come online, potentially? And how long do we think that it's going to take us to get the other 2/3 that we need?
That's a great question, and it's going to, and as I mentioned before, I think Bayberry Hills does present us with a great opportunity to get most of the way there. With that said, 370,000 is not enough, but it gets us pretty far with existing flows. The closer to the 1 million gallon target is for phase one with some redevelopment factored in. So we do have a little bit of time in order to build out the infrastructure, continue to work with DEP to get our permit increased or find other locations that would satisfy discharge requirements. The other piece is it's also going to take a fair amount of time, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation, for people to even connect. Right now, we are anticipating that in 2027, late 2027, the treatment facility will be constructed, and hopefully at that time also connected. We've got to get DEP to sign off on the infrastructure we've put in and allow us to transmit flows to the treatment facility before we can even have those connections be constructed on the properties within phase one. So we have several years, 3 or 4 years before we're even going to start to see flows, and that groundwater discharge permit is only a 5-year permit. So we're not going to hit 370,000 gallons by the end of the permit. So we're going to be asking for a renewal just as we're starting to receive flows at the treatment plant. And because of that, we have a little bit of time to work with them. I don't want to lose any of the momentum, and I think that's why it's important we continue to fund the investigation of other sites, because we have the ear of DEP. We're meeting with them on a regular basis, and I want to continue that progress. And without additional funding to look at those other sites, we could be delayed, and then they might decide that they don't need to meet with us as regularly, because we do want to keep the momentum and get the additional flow we need, but we do have some time.
Okay. All right. Well, I agree. I mean, we have to move forward. We have to keep going. We have to get the expanded permit, because if not, we are going to really just put a halt to everything. How many years from the beginning did it take us to get this initial permit? I mean, that's the scary part. That's what I'm saying.
This is how many gray hairs.
It's taken a long time. My hairs
know.
have gotten a lot grayer in the process, absolutely.
Well,
But
I
with
just
that
hope
said, we're looking at DHY at one
Jeff
point.
didn't
so-
have a gray hair at all before
No, I
he
know.
started the process. No.
We were looking at other options too, so we can't say it was just this one focus on just 99 Buck Island Road. We were actually, partnering with other communities and spent some time in that effort. So it has been quite a while, it's been years, but we have shifted the focus to where we are today, and we just want to continue that momentum, as I said.
All right, that's all I have.
Joyce?
Oh, I'd just like to say thank you for all your hard work and keeping this on track, and to echo the concerns from the east end of the table, that it's really important for us to keep going. I think especially given that we rely so much on a piece of this and some money for that from the state, the way that we can prove that we're highly serious is to just get this done as fast as possible and be asking them for the next step. And obviously, we would be glad to do anything we could do to help facilitate that. but it's good work. It's incredibly complicated work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. You made a really critical comment there when you said keeping those lines of communication open. I think for a while there here on the board, we were really feeling, in hearing your frustration, that they weren't answering the calls when you were calling. And now to have this line of communication with them, it's very important to keep that open and to keep that dialogue going. We even had to go to our state legislators to ask for their assistance as well in making this happen. So having that and then staying with that momentum, again, having our town meeting, staying on course for all of this is just critically important. Jeff, why don't you go on with your next?
All right, great. This is the wastewater contracts. As you all know, it's a very large project, the biggest the town has undertaken and maybe will, at $207 million. And because of that, it had to be broken up into separate contracts. There are currently 6 contracts, and we're going to go through each one of those. But you can see that graphically represented on the screen here. Contract 1 is the treatment facility. That's at 99 Buck Island Road, as we've talked about. And contracts 2 through 6 are also shown on the screen, just for point of reference. Currently, contracts 2 and 3 are the ones that are under construction. You see the contractors out there today working. I'll cover this, and then I'll turn it over to Lori for the collection system contracts. But this is the water resource recovery facility. There's some good graphics in each one of these slides. I think these are very similar to what you've seen before, but it does give some perspective as to what we're about to construct. Just some highlights. Bids were received on September 6th this year. We do expect to award before October 31st. Sorry, that's the deadline for award of all these contracts. The construction time frame is 1,000 days. So as I mentioned before, kind of indicating what that time frame looks like, that's 2 years and 8 months or so. So there's a significant project on the horizon here for us for just the treatment facility. It's going to take some time to complete. We do expect to have several of these collection system contracts completed before this facility is up and running. But it's a matter of timing out the project so we can minimize the impact with getting some of the collection system contracts done in advance of others. It's a lot of moving pieces. So with that said, completion in late 2027, as I mentioned before, is the target for that. This is probably one of the most common questions we get is, well, you're under construction, the pipes have just gone in the road in front of my property. When can I connect? And that's when we have to explain, well, we have to have the treatment facility up and constructed and able to receive flows and all the pipes connected in the street with the pump stations working before you can have connect. So right now it's late 2027 and more likely early 2028 before people could be making those physical connections in their properties. We know people are planning for that and thinking about that now, which is great. We're meeting with a couple even this week that want to kind of talk about what that looks like, and we're happy to have those conversations, but it's still a few years in the future before that can be physically connected to the treatment facility. With that said, here's some encouraging news. The engineer's estimate for that contract 1 for the treatment facility was $106 million. And as you can see from this table, nothing's been awarded at this point. In fact, I was talking with Bob earlier today, and we anticipate coming back to your meeting sometime in early October with all the contracts to have those reviewed by you. Once all the bids are known, there's still a bid out there for contract 5 that hasn't been opened. We're actually opening those tomorrow, which is a great thing. But once we have all those known numbers and recommendations for award, we do plan to come back to you with those so you'll know exactly what makes up the full $207 million from each one of the 6 construction contracts to estimates for police details and paving costs, as well as construction phase services. So we have construction phase services from both CDM Smith as well as Wright Pierce that'll be in that, and you'll have those numbers for you, probably in a very similar table, but much larger with regards to what those costs look like for your approval.
Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
I think it's great that you're doing that. I remember the days when select boards had to sign off on all contracts. You know, obviously with procurement laws being the way they are, things have changed, and we delegate a lot of that. But I think particularly for the nature of this work and the amount of money involved, I want to commend you and the town administrator, Bob Rittenauer, for making this move in terms of bringing this to us, because I think it's totally in order. And I think one of the mistakes that we made in the new procurement laws is basically keeping select boards more or less in the dark on a lot of contracting. There was a time when all the contracts would come before boards and they would have to sign off on them, and it was a level of transparency and openness and disclosure that, and I'm not suggesting that that we have a problem here. I'm just saying that there was a time when that kind of openness was very refreshing and very helpful. And I think in the name of reform, what we've done is we've taken this kind of practice and sort of put it behind closed doors. And again, I'm not suggesting that there's a problem inherently with what we're doing. It's just that I think it's important for the public to know with some frequency about how their money is being spent and who's spending it. And I think it's important that boards, also be accountable by having to review and approve and act on contracts.
One of them is probably about 1,000 pages, I guess.
Yes, these are very large documents.
Yeah.
Right. And no, I understand. I'm not suggesting that the work itself wasn't laborious and wasn't time-consuming, but there was some value in at least creating an awareness and an understanding on the part of the public as to some of these big projects and what they cost and the contracts that are involved and who's actually doing the work. So, enough of my speech.
Jeff,
but thank you.
You said about coming back to the board. Our meetings in October are October 1 and October 29, kind of like the bookends of the month. When would you be considering coming back to talk to us? October 1 or October?
The 29th would really be too late in the cycle for us.
That's what I figured.
Yes.
So we'll be expecting you back October 1.
Yes, and we'll be ready. We'll have all the information, all the bids will be open, and we'll have some recommendations.
Okay, great.
But before I hand it over to Laura, I did want to emphasize that engineer's estimate was 106 million, and at the low bid here, that's approximately, even with all the alternates added in, which if we were having to make some tough decisions, those could be left off. That's why it's structured that way. But even with that, it's $9 million below that estimate. So that's really good news, because the first couple of contracts we opened up were above the engineer's estimate. This has really helped us get back on track. And this was a piece that we were very concerned about because it's the largest piece. It's half of the overall project. And so this is just some very good news that really makes it in a very good shape for the rest of the overall budget and the rest of the contracts. So with that said, I'll turn this over to Lori for walking through the remainder of the collection contracts.
All right, so I'm just going to start with the contracts that are in construction right now. That's contracts 2 and 3. Contract 2 is the Old Main Street and Route 28, the Old Main Street section of Route 28, and that's Robert B. Auer. So just kind of an update on where they're working now. They have a crew on Route 28 at Pond Street, and this says they're moving west. They're actually moving east towards Bass River, but they will be going west eventually. And then they'll have another crew. The crew that's currently on Forest Road will be moving to Route 28 near McDonald's sometime in the next 2 weeks once they get that done. So they'll be having 2 crews pretty much for now, for the short term, as far as I know.
Excuse me, Lori, you said they're going to be at McDonald's and moving east? Didn't we do?
They came from, they're moving east.
Okay.
They came from.
They're left off at that location.
So that means they're going to be going in front of the supermarkets and.
Yes.
Correct.
But that'll be, okay.
It'll be in front of Shaw's. Yeah.
Stop, yeah.
So there will be 2 detours happening at the same time there until they get too close to have 2 detours. And then we'll get to detours later. And then the other contract is contract 3, which is Route 28 and South Shore Drive. That is Rivoli. They are back on Route 28 at Seaview and moving eastward. They end around Skull Island Mini Golf Course. That's where they get to, and Robert Auer will meet them there. And then they're supposed to have another crew starting on South Shore Drive at Seaview headed towards the Red Jacket. They told us that crew would have been here by now, but they're not, so I'm not actually sure when they're going to be starting at this point. And at some point, they'll bring in a third crew that will also be on South Shore Drive.
When, Lori, you say Seaview Ave, but wasn't Seaview Ave already done? I mean, there's patching that's gone all the way, so.
Not all the way. They need to go from South Shore Drive north for a section still. But they're not doing that right now. Right now they're doing South Shore from Seaview towards the Red Jacket on South Shore Drive.
But you say that crew is delayed?
Yes.
And you haven't not received a start date from them?
Now, you've given us when these are beginning. When do we hope they'll be able to end these contracts?
Well, both contracts run through the spring of 2026, but I can get to their progress.
But if you're a business on Route 28, and you're sort of at some point, I mean, just be prepared. This is going to be a long journey. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So they were both contractors are kind of working in sections, so that they'll do a section and get the sewer done, and then get the water done, and then get out of that section, so that they can kind of free it up again. Kind of like in the spring, Robert Hour stayed on Route 28 between Forest Road and Old Main. They got everything done there, almost. They didn't quite finish. They have to go back and finish the water line, but that was their goal. They'll get that whole section done before moving on to the next section, so that they're hopefully not impacting people for too long. But they do have to come back many times. So they have to put the gravity line in, and then they have to come back and put the stub out to people's properties. And then they have to put the water line in. And then once that's tested, they have to put the connections to the water line. So they are going to go in front of every customer on Route 28. Water line's only going on Route 28, but they're going to have to, touch every customer multiple times.
So does that mean that you'll have one course of work and then there'll be a patch and then they'll come back later and do it? Or is it going to be, so the road will be repaired and not completely resurfaced, but patched, and then at some point later, it'll be dug up, and then something else is going to go in, right?
Yes.
Right, we call it a temporary patch before,
Right.
all the work gets done before they do a permanent patch.
Got it. Okay.
And one thing I just wanted to show, this picture is on Old Main Street. And the reason why sewer takes so long, this picture is a good example. If you look at the rungs on the ladder, that's a very deep hole. And if you look at the size of the pipe, that's a very large piece of pipe. So it's a lot of work just to get set up to put one piece of pipe in. So I just wanted to kind of show what's in the hole. I believe that's about 18 feet deep.
Really?
And we have sections that are up to 25 feet deep. It
Really?
gets exponentially harder the deeper it is.
Also, as far as timing, one thing to note is that I think everyone's aware that Mass DOT's permit doesn't allow work in the summer on Route 28, but it also doesn't allow work in the winter from November 15th to April 1st. So that's a challenge for us, but we do expect that we're going to request to extend our time to be able to work at least through December, potentially into January if the weather allows. Mass DOT's concern is snow and ice. So if they have to, because they're the ones that maintain those roads, so if it's going to snow, they don't want plates in the road, that type of thing. But if the weather holds out, we should be able to work longer into the winter. Obviously, we want to do the work in the winter if we can, so there's less people here. So this is just an update of the status. This is the lines for contracts 2 and 3, and it's the sewer only, not the water. And so right now, contract 2, which is Robert Hour's project, is about 45% complete for just the sewer lines, and contract 3 is about a quarter of the way there. And the star, oh, I didn't do that yet, sorry. The stars just show where they're going to be working, or where they are working, or should be working over the next month or so. One thing to note is that the Forest Road, which is top left star, and near McDonald's are not going to be at the same time. The crew that's on Forest Road will be moving over to Route 28, so they'll get Forest Road done and then move over there. Next. the remaining contracts. So contract 4 is the Bass River Bridge area. The low bid was Robert B. Hour, and we're just waiting for Mass DEP approval to formally award that to them.
When did that bid come in? Bids in?
That was in August.
It might have been a little before that. We've had contracts for a little while, but the deadline's October 31st, so we have some time to work through that. Focus has been getting the contracts 5 and 6 on the street, but we will be formally getting approval from DEP to award that very soon.
Very good.
We're not anticipating then that they're going to,
Nickel and dime us?
well, not only that, but I mean, just slow down the process, Mass DEP, that they're online with us for having this completed by award time of...
Everyone is aware that October 31st is our deadline, and we're all working towards making that deadline work. In fact, it comes up at our DEP meetings regularly, that if we need help, we have staff within the regional office that can help us move those forward. So we're confident on the ability to get those awards done. Our really critical piece was that groundwater discharge permit we talked about. I think we've now developed some good relationships with DEP staff that if we needed help, we could move those forward quickly if we needed to.
Okay, good.
Moving on, contract 5, which is from Parker's River to Higgins Croll Road, all on Route 28. That bid is due tomorrow, and that estimate is $24 million. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. But then contract 6, we actually did receive those bids already last Wednesday, and that low bidder, the apparent low bidder was Diggett Construction, and their total bid price was $19 million, which is a little bit less than the most recent engineer's estimate. So that's another good sign. Moving on to
Are there any questions on collection
Yep.
system before we move
Right,
on? Yeah.
before, so these are the contracts that we're going to be talking about on October 1st?
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be contract 1, contract 5, and contract 6?
We'll have all of them in a table for you indicating what all of the costs are associated with all of the contracts. And that's only a piece of the puzzle, because the other pieces are related to construction phase services for our consultant team, police details. There's a number of pieces on that we need to demonstrate to you the total budget of the $207,244,000 and exactly where everything is committed to go. And because it's early in the process, we'll also have a contingency in there. That's an important piece to note. So there's a contingency for all of this. And as it looks today, pending the bids tomorrow, we're on target for that budget. We just need some time to continue to put that information together and get that to you on October 1st.
Okay, great.
That's great news.
Yeah.
It really is. On a project
Tracy?
this size.
Sorry.
I just have questions in terms of logistically. I mean, we hear from the citizens now, and I know we're getting into the communication. But logistically, when you have multiple, we have 2 contracts now that are out there working, 2 different contractors. When you have multiple contractors and work going on at the same time, it very much increasingly makes it more difficult communication-wise. So I'm concerned about how you're going to handle that. Are you going to be doing team meetings or, one can't, there's a lot of logistical things that go on. One can't start without the other one finishing and connecting, and just the multitude of the road, the length of the road that's impacting at one time. Are we staggering these? How are we? I just want to hear your plan.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's essentially why we've started contracts 2 and 3 in advance. By the time we really ramp up with contracts 4, 5, and 6, a large chunk of those others will be done. In fact, we did have a meeting last week with the business community to talk about this upcoming work on Route 28. I think that's on a future slide, but I'll jump ahead a little bit here. And the project manager for Robert B. Hour said that while with some hesitation, but it looks like they're on track to finish up before next summer on their contract. So that's an ideal situation. They're, I think, ahead of schedule, which is great. You know, obviously this is construction and things could happen, and there could be some delays and other impacts that might change that. Also, the weather this winter is going to be a huge factor. If they can continue to work through most of the winter, that plan will probably be realized. If there's a huge chunk of very cold weather or problematic conditions, then that might extend things. But as Lori mentioned before, they have a contract through 2026. So they're well within the contract. They're just ahead of schedule at this point. And that's why we wanted to show the chart that actually shows the percent complete. I think one of the times when we were back before this board to give an update, you asked for that percentage. And that helps us kind of anticipate what the future might look like. But with that said, we are trying to get as much done in contracts 2 and 3, and 4 is a really small contract that also hopefully will go very quickly before
And there's a
contracts
gap,
5 and 3
right? There's a-
really wrap up. And they're on different sides of the town,
Right.
So I think that's going to help a lot. But you're absolutely right. This is a massive project with a lot of moving pieces and a lot of coordination. We do meet every other week with the contractors, and we're going to be ramping up for 3 more progress meetings with these 4 more with the treatment facility. So it's very busy. It's important to have a big team involved in all of this. The chamber attends all our meetings as well, but it's going to be getting significantly more busy and a lot more moving pieces. Right now, we're really just managing the 2 contracts. All 6 will be going at one time. Again, hopefully some of them are ramping down and finishing up while others are starting.
That's
But
what I
there's
was
going to be
wondering, if you
6
were
active
staggering the start
contracts
times.
all at the same time. No, next year in 2025,
They'll
during some
all-
period, probably, late spring, all 6 will be worked at the same time.
Buckle up.
I also want to commend the police department. They've been doing an excellent job. You know, they're kind of Johnny on the spot out there with the frustrated motorists who are stopping and giving them their peace of mind about where they go and how they get there. But the police have been very accommodating, and I definitely want to send my kudos to them and thanks.
Well, absolutely, and specifically Lieutenant Bryant. He has done a phenomenal job with getting those maps out about the detours, the communications. There's always things we can improve, I'm sure, but the way our Yarmouth Police Department has been engaged on movement of traffic, selecting the best detour routes, looking at the turning radius of vehicles and whether they can make certain turns, coordinating the detours. Like, you obviously can't have a contractor working on the detour route while that's the detour route for another contractor. There's a significant amount of coordination that needs to happen, and they've been excellent. And so we are looking to continue that and build on that success.
They've certainly been showing their community policing in this whole thing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it sounds like we're touching a little bit upon communications. Do you want to talk about that, Lori?
Sure, yeah, we can continue on. I think we've already covered some of this, but that's all right. We'll just reiterate. So as Dorcas mentioned, the police have been a huge factor. Lieutenant Bryant has been working with the contractors directly to determine the detour routes, and then they've been publicizing the detours on their Facebook page, which has a lot of followers, so I think that's a helpful place to post it. We did have that meeting that Jeff mentioned with the businesses associated with contracts 2 and 3 this week. This room was full of business owners, and we basically gave a lot of the same information that we were giving tonight on just the contracts themselves and where they're going. We're there to answer any questions. Seemed to go well. And then we wanted to also mention the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce has been heavily involved with, Mary Vilbon from the Chamber comes to all of the construction meetings, so she knows what's going on, and then she sends out information to her list on a weekly basis of what's going on with the sewer, so the businesses can get updates through her. And then they also have been working on a radio and sign campaign to just promote sewer in Yarmouth, kind of like a, bear with us while we're under construction sort of campaign. The radio ads actually started yesterday on 99.9 The Q and 104.7, Ocean 104.7. So you might hear that. if you're on listening to the radio. And then they'll be making new signs for the light posts on Route 28. And as always, we update Waze every day. So even if you know where you're going, it's a good idea to put on Waze before you go somewhere in Yarmouth. Now.
Lori, you said that the meeting was well attended here with the Chamber of Commerce, but how was the general meeting, the feeling, the output from that meeting? Was it positive?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in. I was there as well, and a couple of comments. I've been very impressed with the team's approach on all of the communications. This has been an all-hands-on-deck effort from everyone associated with this project from the town, and we're very fortunate to have the communications team with the highly skilled technical DPW team and police working together, and the chamber. And as they indicated, Paul was running around that stack of chairs, setting up all extra chairs. There just wasn't enough room in this room for everyone that was there. And folks were, first and foremost, extraordinarily positive. I think that they appreciated having the information, to such detail. And listen, some of the things that we talked about that, just need to be said, under the best of circumstances, a project like this with the 18-foot trenches, the entire length of the key backbone of our community. We call this part of the wastewater the backbone for a reason. Under the best of circumstances, this is an enormous inconvenience for everyone associated, with our community. Especially, we understand the business community that is out there on Route 28. And we've got so much going on in terms of the technology and the website and the Waze and all of this, but make no mistake about it, what we've found through our efforts, it is the one-on-one personal discussions with individual property owners, individual business people that is the difference to making this project somewhat livable. Folks wanted to know, there were a lot of questions. It was a very active give and take. People wanted to know which contractor, where they were going to be, how it was going to be handled. And we had a tremendous amount of information that was presented. And so, the meeting was positive and upbeat, and we talked about the future impacts as well for the community. And I wanted to say one thing on behalf of the business community. Folks were very aware and knowledgeable about the need for this project. No one's happy that we have to dig up the town to get it, but people are well aware of the benefits that we're going to accrue. And working with the chamber also, and I really want to thank Mary, has been a critical positive element. And, we brainstorm with Lori Sullivan the efforts for establishing different communications and messaging. It's really critical. And Lori Rosala mentioned the radio spots and some banners that we're putting up. That came from interaction and brainstorming with the Chamber of Commerce to spread our message from the standpoint of the benefits to the environment for this project, that people need to have the specific information and the hard data about how the detours and everything is going to work. But those radio spots and the banners that we have that are going up, which, by the way, have been funded by the chamber, the banners indicate, it's almost as if, please, have patience while we fix the environment. It gets that messaging out there that at the end of this project that there's really going to be a payoff for the town. But I just want to say the meetings that we've held and that meeting with the chamber individual businesses, that's just like one example. I know you had attended the meeting that we had with the 5-Star Bus Company and the superintendent of schools and the business manager out there where the police detailed out how they were managing those detours and having police on the street able to direct people through and make sure that the buses get through those detours. I thought having that personal information, there was no substitute for that. There's been additional meetings that have been ongoing with some of the larger lodging facilities. I know we're particularly concerned with the Red Jacket, and it's actually good news. Under our contracting, right, because of the timeframes, we're forced to greenlight Rivoli for the period in September to commence construction so that we're not responsible for any delays. And, we had sort of hoped that they wouldn't be out there, tremendously quick, because September is a very busy month for some of the major lodging facilities. But we conducted, just personal one-on-one meetings with the management of that facility. I'm actually delighted that they're taking a little time to enable, on weekends there's weddings going, but some of the things that we uncovered by this personal back and forth is that, we're going to have a detail officer down on Seaview Avenue that is specifically geared towards ensuring the access to that major facility down there. There's specific signage about the Red Jacket and how do you get there. And it's a big node, that's a hub for activity, whether it's the weddings and big parties. They have a huge motor coach trade. That means motor coaches need to get down that road around into the facility, and also all of the deliveries and things. But the good news is managing that, working with people one-on-one. We're out there trying to solve the problems sort of before it becomes a nightmare. And like I say, it's not going to be easy, but we're working on this. It's a daily thing that we're all involved, and we discuss it nonstop. It's pretty much almost like an around-the-clock thing, but gives you just a little flavor for, beyond the technical piece, some of the things we're working on.
They always say the best solution is more information, so the more you can give that information, the better.
Well, I think, Madam Vice Chair, I think this is something, we've been, I'm glad you're doing this. This is something that we had stressed was important to do months ago, and it's good to see that this level of effort is being made. It's the intensity of the communications, the direct engagement with people that is vital in terms of the success of this overall program. And it's almost like in your face on a regular basis. And as Dorcas said, the more information, the better. No one's going to complain that you're talking to them too much. All right, that's a simple. Can you go back on the previous slide? The one compliment that I get, actually, the one that has ways to connect.
Oh.
Where's that one? Right there, bingo. I get, whoever does the maps showing where the detours are, I hear kudos all the time. People say of all the things that we do, at least the folks that complain and have something to say to me, like these little maps. So whoever's putting them out, they're doing a good job. They're making an impact. People like them, and they find them very easy to figure out. And so whoever's doing that, they're doing a good job, at least from the people that are screaming at me about all the construction.
And I forgot to mention, I don't know how I forgot this, but Robert B. Auer has been a fabulous resource for in-person communications and a lot of the door-to-door work. So having at least that particular contractor, and we think we've got some other really good contractors that are lining up for 5 and 6, that's been a big help too.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is the last slide. You want to just go through this real quick?
Sure. Just a few ways if you want to get more information. We have the e-alerts through Notify Me on the town website, so you can get any emails of alerts. Then you could also follow the town on Facebook or other social media, as well as Yarmouth Police, because as I noted, it's the police that make these maps. So they're the ones you want to follow for sure. And then if you have general questions, you can visit the wastewater website, which is listed at the bottom of the page. But it's also, if you just go to the town website, it's at the top, wastewater construction. And that will give you the weekly look-aheads, so the next 3 weeks of what the contractors plan on doing, where they plan on being, so you can get an idea of what obstacles might be in your way coming up. as well as the actual plans for the construction. So if you have a property on those roads, you can look at those plans if you can figure them out, if you know how to read plans. But you can see, you know, where they're planning to put your sewer stub, where the water line is, that type of thing. And then there's just the general resident information, you know, when can I connect, how much is it going to cost, that type of thing on the website as well. So I think that is it.
Yeah, I
Do you
think
want to
with
add?
that, it would be good to see if Paul or Lori have any comments. I think Paul might have that radio ad that.
I have the radio spot if you'd like to hear.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yarmouth is open for business. The wastewater construction project on Route 28 may be an inconvenience, but it's temporary, and the upgrades will make for a cleaner Yarmouth. In the meantime, don't let detours get you down. Download the free Waze app today for a smoother ride to your favorite Yarmouth restaurant or shop. Learn more at yarmouth.ma.us. And while you're there, sign up for notifications to get updates on project status. The town of Yarmouth thanks you for your patience and continued support of its local businesses.
That's a good ad. That's a really nice ad.
That's Paul.
That's your media voice? Media voice? I would say that that's great, and it's great to keep that going. Looking ahead, I'm glad we talked a little bit about the financing, people starting to ask questions about the financing. I think that's going to be the next communications piece, doing workshops and forums and getting people adequately informed about what their options are and when they need to be. And it's almost like, it sounds like people are asking now, so it may very well be the sooner the better on that, you know? And, I mean, I'm glad to hear that there are all sorts of tax credits and other incentives that have been adopted. I think the legislature did some things to make it easier to write off sewer hookup expenses too. Hopefully we can get some details on that. So I thought when the tax breaks were being made available, they were just for IA systems, but apparently they've been expanded to include sewer hookups too, which is terrific. And there's going to be a certain amount of money people can write off each year. So I think that and some of the other programs that are out there, like the county's Aquafund program, I think people need to know where those programs are, how can they access them, and when they need to start thinking about doing that. So those will be a little bit more, well, probably just as engaging as the ones with the business community. So,
Tracy, any other?
No, it's just what Mark said, that and coupled with starting to figure out funding for our next phase altogether. So there's just, you know, we can't, it took so long for the first phase and it's going to take so long to get it online, but you know, the next phase will be fast approaching, and we're going to have to find ways to fund that as well, so.
Mark, you had another point?
no, I think, I just want to echo once again, we've mentioned this before, but I think it can't be emphasized enough, Tracy's point about thinking of the future. I've had this conversation with the town administrator myself about, I'm very concerned about losing momentum on this, and I think as a board, we need to join with other towns in making the case for more state and federal help. I think now's the time to start laying the groundwork for that. I think we need to do an analysis, a projection of phase 2, phase 3. We may need to work with our consultants and our team here to look at that because, you know, virtually our entire revenue stream that's coming in to cover the cost of the debt is all going to phase 1. So where's, how do we do phase 2? And I think that needs to be the game plan. And we may have to hire a consultant to help us at least stitch together the pieces for that because everybody else is so busy. But I think that's the thing that I think I would agree completely with Tracy is now's the time to start putting the scope of work to that together because, I'd like to see, quite frankly, some collaboration maybe with the other managers. Maybe this is a manager's topic at a manager's meeting, Bob, but I think the more we're united with Barnstable and Falmouth and some of the other towns that are spending a lot of money on wastewater, I think we need to be able to paint a picture that, you know, we're through phase 1, but unless we get more help, we need to be able to define the kind and amount of help that we need financially.
Just the planning that goes into phase 2, that they're busy now, going to be running projects for the next
contract.
No, I know,
how many
they're out
years
straight,
that
right.
we know what it took to get phase one, so who's gonna be focusing on the next phase while they're managing this phase?
Well, yeah, no, I think what I would argue is what we need to do, concentrate is on the financial, sort of a financial, what are our costs, and maybe what are our options. I think people need to start thinking about, if we're gonna replicate the same approach, first of all, we can't replicate this approach. I mean,
have
the
to.
revenue streams that we're tapping into it, there's not like there's a lot of surplus money sloshing around somewhere. Just about every dime that we're getting in from a revenue source that's being streamed and earmarked for wastewater is gonna be used. Unless, maybe I'm wrong, but.
Well, the good news is that over, like, half of phase one is the plant, and so we don't have to fund that again.
Right.
So,
No, but I think it would be nice to be able to start laying out. We need to understand what paying for phase two is going to look like, phase three is going to look like. I don't know how much further we can go down the road, but we need to at least make some financial projections going ahead so that we can. I would like to make the case for, at least while the legislature's debating a municipal modernization bill and some other legislative vehicles, I mean, if we need to enhance a local option, we at least have some basis to make the case. I know, for example, some towns are looking to go back to, a rooms tax, or they're looking for a bump up in the Airbnb tax. I've heard that discussed in other towns as a way. I'm not suggesting that we need to look to you for what those options are, but I think they're part of the conversation. So it becomes sort of multifaceted.
We had a whole finance team. We had a whole team that was focused on putting all that together. Unfortunately, now I feel like the scenario is going to be a little bit different because, like I said, they're very busy going to be managing these contracts. So who's our team? We need a team that's going to be able to help them.
It'll be the finance team.
we'll do it.
Yeah, they can do it. But we need to start working on it now. That's more of a manager-led effort in figuring out our costs, our projections, when do you need the money, and then figuring out with the finance team how things are looking, how do things play out long-term. Because I do think that we need to, while we've got, when I look at the broader landscape, there are what we call windows of opportunity. There are going to be times when you can go after money, and there are lean times. And at the moment, we've got a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on wastewater right now. And
A hot topic.
it is. And so now, I'd like to think that within the next 6 months, we should be able to make a case on what it's going to cost and what our options are for financing at least the next two phases. That's where we're going to need your help, because our job is going to be talking to legislators to give us the kind of support that we need from them. All we hear on Beacon Hill is local option. No one's, now in the run-up to finalizing the DEP regs, people were promising us extra money. But those promises
Don't seem to be coming through.
I haven't seen anybody backing up the truck at Town Hall and dropping off large buckets of money. So I honestly think we need to craft our own recommendations on where the state can do more to help us. And that might mean giving us the ability to tap into some revenue sources that are either capped or may not necessarily be as available as we'd like. So those are the measures that are getting really, I think we can get attention on. So I think that needs to be part of the conversation.
Do you have any comment?
I'd just like to say, I know that your efforts to communicate about all this are appreciated, because there's one person on my block who watches Board of Selectmen for the public comment always, and then the rest is of less interest. But whenever there's something connected to wastewater or water issues with the two of you, that person tunes in again later in the meeting. So,
All right, good to know.
work.
Okay. So we'll see you on October 1st.
Yes, October 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to it. You're all doing a tremendous job. Thank you.
That's Lori, Communications Director.
Oh my God, I didn't recognize you with your hair like that.
Okay, moving on, we have discussion regarding the Matakees Utilization Committee appointment process and scope. Bill, you very detailed, sent out to us a very detailed report, basically, I would say, on where we are now, what we need to do, and how we go about getting it done. And one of the things that really jumped out very quickly for me, I don't know about for the rest of you, was that we have 14 applicants for 5 spots on the committee. We did talk about the fact that we want to participate in the interview process for those candidates. So that immediately brings up a question. Do we interview all 14 of these people, or do we put in some, shall we say, markers that on their CVs that they, like goals or that they need to achieve? By that I mean, for instance, we've talked a lot about the stakeholders, you know, that we don't want to have somebody who's basically there for their own particular interest. And quickly looking at this list, I see a couple of members of the Recreation Commission that are on this list. I see a member of the school committee for DY District, and also a member of the school committee for Cape Tech. Would we want to be saying that those particular individuals should not be interviewed? Or do we go ahead with all 14? Now, staying with that, let's say that we do want to do all 14. You're talking about 3 nights that it's going to take for us to be able to interview those people, 14 people. Even if you gave them only, say, 15 minutes apiece, you're looking at roughly 2 hours a night for definitely 2 of those nights, and probably an hour and a half for the third to get all those interviews in. And we also have talked about, and we've had urging from the public, that they don't want us to delay on this, but to keep moving forward. So then another question may be, does that mean then that we're going to set up 3 meetings next week to interview all these people so that we can come back with a vote that we could make on the 1st of October?
Well, this is it's an advisory committee. So, you know, ultimately, it's our responsibility in the end. They'll be bringing it back to us. I kind of agree, you know, I think that with any of our committees, it's always great to bring more new people in. A lot of these people that are on here are on several other boards. I personally would support, and you know, I'm not saying anybody has a particular issue, but as you've pointed out, there are people that have, you know, strong feelings about recreation, strong feelings about housing, that are on other committees already. So to me, I would support basically picking out the people who aren't on policy setting committees already, or other committees. There's a few of them on here that have done some ad hoc committees before. A few of them, there's not really enough. Almost everybody on here is representative of something else. So that's, you know, if we had 5 people that were just not on other committees, I would just support those 5 personally, because like I said, bringing in more people than having people serve on multiple committees, I think is just how I would look at this. So I wasn't here for the discussion to say that this board wanted to be involved in the interview of all of them, because I don't think that's, I think that, you know, I don't need to be involved in it. As I said, this isn't a policy setting committee, this is an advisory committee. And I've made my my thoughts known. I like the way that this is written because it does take into consideration the Emmy Small property, which I think is important. I am very concerned with the need of the school needs still, to really even have them go down a road not knowing what our school needs are going to be. So I'm hesitant overall. However, we can't let it go on. So I guess we have to take a path of moving forward. But again, I'm not any more comfortable after our meeting with Dr. Smith last week, knowing what our future for the school needs are. You know, what happens if we have to use Matakees while we remodel?
Mm-hmm.
That's a potential.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm fearful of that. But we have to start. I think there's a lot of work to do here. We're behind the 8 ball in terms of looking at all of the property. And again, my personal opinion would be to bring in those that don't serve on other committees as opposed to those who are already on other committees. That's just me. Nothing about any particular individual, just as a policy of the town. I think the more we bring in, the better.
Okay. Joyce?
I think that I find myself agreeing with you, Dorcas, about people who have strong interests about the property. The 2 members of 2 different school committees, the recreation-focused people.
You got planning board, you got CEDC, you got all of them.
If you cull out the ones that are not currently sitting on boards,
I think you got 3. And we need,
And then see how those compare to the specializations in experience that we suggested might be useful.
3, 4, no, we might have 5.
I'm not sure, I know these people, but Ian Kelly, Andrew Liard, Joe Potska, Sharon Weimer.
Roby Whitehouse has put in her name,
Roby.
who is a town employee.
She doesn't sit on any other committee.
She
as
doesn't
far
sit
as I
on
know.
any, no, and that,
Maybe there is 5.
there are 5.
I don't know if anybody else has any feelings about that, but again, it's no disrespect to any of them. They're all very qualified. I mean, it's great to have this issue because some committees we can't fill.
Right.
Mark,
Yep.
any thoughts?
I think I just go back to the beginning when we first started talking about this. It was sort of, if you're going to have user groups represented, then you got to have them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, you could see potential recreation use here, you could see potential school use here. I mean, you've got a whole variety of uses. You could see advocates for housing, advocates for seniors. I mean, so if you put the committee, I would recommend that if there's a desire to put user groups or some of the interests that could be well served by being at a facility redeveloped, of course. You can't be exclusive. You can't exclude anybody. You're going to have to put them all in. On the other hand, I think when we were conceiving of this committee, my recommendation is that we have a committee very similar to the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee, where you've got people on there with a zoning background, engineering, construction. You know, I think those disciplines, you know, are incredibly helpful in terms of figuring out what your options are and what you can do. And the reality is as a group, they can engage interest groups and stakeholders, you know, in terms of getting a sense of what their needs are and figuring out how they might fit or not. So by doing it that way, you're not excluding people from participating, you know. You can organize the process so that all the various user groups can be brought in and make their case, you know. I mean, I've got to mention the library, so from my point...
I think that going down the line, absolutely. Whoever is on this committee is then going to have to meet with
All of
various
those folks,
user
right.
groups, which is then going to bring back some of these. But if we go on Tracy's concept of them not being on a policy-setting board right now, and you look at, there's one gentleman in here, for instance, that has not served on any committee, who has a background in architecture and building development and healthcare financial management. There is a woman who has a background in technology.
That's what I mean. I think we need to look at the skill sets. I haven't gone through each of these applications, but I think what's important is to get a mix of skill sets that can really help provide some real value.
We have someone that has a strong background in community administration, in that we have a former director of the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority who has, who also currently doesn't sit on any committee. I'm saying that if you go through these, you find, because our volunteer pool is these 14 people. This is who we have to choose from. And there's another one in here that's real estate, who doesn't sit on any committees now. And then, of course, we've mentioned her name, Roby Whitehouse, who is the Assistant DPW Chair. Could I suggest then, because, you know, we've heard concerns from so many people in the community, and I personally was taken aback when I realized that this building is not insured. You know, that we've got a building sitting there that carries liability insurance, but if it burns down tomorrow, it's gone. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And you've already gone over with them, you know, like, well, we have recreation programs going on in there right now. There are various uses that the building is going through, but they said back to you that in order to qualify for the additional insurance, we'd have to have...
It's like a minimum 33% of all of the square footage on a full-time basis occupied. It's...
the entire building.
Yeah,
complex, I should say.
And that's just an onerous requirement.
What's that requirement, Bob?
33% of the whole building.
To be occupied on a full-time basis. And that's from, you know, the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association, full underwriters, and we've had meeting after meeting, dozens of emails on this. We have sent detailed reports of usage. I purported to have, you know, the recreation with a full-time presence there, the public safety training, all the things, and the storage that we use, and we're not close to meeting their guidelines right now.
Well, how about this suggestion? What if we go back to administration and ask them to go through these applications, see if there are 5 applicants who have not, or the total number of applicants that are not currently on policy-setting boards, with their CV, and return those to us to take a look at, and see if, looking at that, we could actually come up with a decision come October 1st.
Why can't we change the charge to put alternates on there and pick the 5, and we could also have alternates? I think your point about these 5, regardless of who they are going to have to meet and, you know, gather information from all the different town committees. It's going to be a process, but I think it should be a fair and open process of people who don't come with preconceived notions and have an open mind. Yes, having the experience is important, but to me, I'm just concerned about putting, I don't want to say special interest. I mean, I think it's great that we have people who advocate for affordable housing. That's not a bad thing.
No, for any of these projects.
But I personally want to have an open mind, and we're going to have staff with them who's going to be able to guide them. And again, we're gonna have updates and check-ins, and, I mean, we've done this with other committees. I don't think that there were, you know, again, I wasn't here when you guys discussed what your view is, so,
But could I ask you, when you're saying alternates, how many alternates are you
I mean,
thinking
I
of?
don't know.
Would it be
I
the
don't-
other 9 that have,
I don't know. I think we need to move forward. I think we could pick, any of these would be great. But again, I'm more about being more inclusive of people who are trying to volunteer.
Madam Chair?
yes.
The scope has a section in it in which you would gather focus groups. And we're hoping as that happens, people in housing would get together and form a focus group, people in recreation and things like that. And then by virtue of that, maybe they appoint a liaison to the committee as we go through that. Because the difficulty in focus groups is if there's 5 or 6 people in that focus group representing different housing agencies, you don't want all 5 or 6 constantly. You know, you want to interact with the liaison, and they can meet more frequently than, you know, the committee would. So focus groups is one of the standards, and the other, you know, approach that we're looking at is they would file proposals based on those sort of focus areas. So if somebody wants to see recreation there, that group would get together and say, what do we think that is? Housing, what do we think that is? So that puts you in a situation where it's not some sort of land rush or gold rush for the building and they have competing interests. That's really the difficult aspect to this. If you use the clean slate, it means that everybody is going to have a different approach. So if we break them down to focus groups, we can ask each of those groups to say, do you want to appoint somebody that would attend our meetings? And then you go back to yours. So we might meet every other week, once a month, but the other groups can go off and master plan, do whatever they want within the context of that topical area.
See, the approach to me is just different than what we've taken in the past. And I'm not trying to get stuck in the past, and I'm not saying it's the wrong approach, but the work that we did in the reuse of the other buildings that have become available, and of course, we had to do John Simpkins twice. But, you know, the committee made their proposals, and then this board basically drilled it down and put an RFP out based on those suggestions. So there was no master plan prior to that.
All right.
But from what you're saying is that in this process anyway, so if we put somebody from the CEDC and somebody from the planning board and somebody from housing and school, you're saying we're gonna have focus groups with them anyway, and they're gonna have somebody that is going to probably represent their group to the committee, so there's really no harm in taking and potentially putting the 5 new people on there because they're gonna have an opportunity to participate in these focus groups?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty would be is in the housing groups, there are so many participants, you know, nonprofits. We really need them to get together and say, what do we think is the best approach here? So it is not, you know, overwhelmingly that a portion of the site is going to be housing and there's 5 proposals for it. You know, there needs to be some coordination amongst each topical area which are named in the charge. So that's one way of doing it. I mean, we could simplify it and yes, have the group come back and say, we've had several meetings and here's what we want, and then get more detailed later with the board or have the committee do it. But right now, this goes through a process where I was going to hire a consultant to update all the technical reviews that the school department did to make sure we understand what the current condition is. Interview the DPW staff who've been in there and have them tell us so that the committee, whomever, would have the detailed reports on, is this building worth it, kind of thing. Then after that, it's a matter of, according to scope, going through a process of outreach, you know, going to some of these focus group areas, contacting nonprofits, inviting them to meetings and say, what are your ideas in reference to this proposal? Now, the difficulty with this is the broad continuum. You could use this whole site. On one end of the continuum, if you barely touch anything other than updating all the buildings and whatever the school department plan is, then you could end up using classrooms to all the way to the other end of the continuum, which is one developer does the whole site. So in that approach, you'd have three sort of ideas, not necessarily master plans, but three ideas. One is don't do much disruption to the site. What can we do? And is that valid? Because there's a cost benefit with this that we want to run. The CIP committee and both finance committee want this, which is if we own the building and we have uses in it, how much is that cost going to be? What's the repair cost going to be? How are we going to bring it up to speed? Then in the middle, you divide it up by various developers. Maybe there's a housing group, maybe there's a school, whatever the proposals turn out to be. Maybe there's an auditorium recreation. And at the end of the continuum, it's one developer comes in and says, I'll do the whole site. So that's one way of approaching it, three approaches, because the building itself is 156,000 square feet. I mean, this is a big project. The site, what is it, 17 acres or more than 17 acres? So, and then we're adjacent to a water supply, so we probably need sewer on this. So there's a lot of moving parts.
I just want them, whatever it is, I don't want it to be dictated by anybody. I want
Right.
them to go in with an open mind and see what we need as a community and what they think is going to be the best reuse of the property, with no pressure from any particular group. I want them to feel free to really analyze and look at all that the town has done. We've done a lot of visioning. We've done a lot of things. There's a lot of groundwork that has been done. But I just want them to have that flexibility. And
Going back to your idea, though, because if I do my count here, again, I've just gone through all of these applications. There are a total of 6 people on this list that are not currently on policy-setting committees, which would be 5 members to the committee and 1 alternate, with varying backgrounds. What if we just put those together in a packet for us to take a look at?
I've taken a look at all of them. I'm fine with that. I think we can.
Having those 5, 6 people.
I'm fine with that. Again, it's going to be a whole community effort.
Oh, absolutely,
So-
absolutely. But we have to start somewhere.
I agree.
We have to start, and that's why I'm saying, so Joyce, what do you think of the idea of naming these 6 people then to the committee?
I'd be okay with that. I'm thinking because of the focus group aspect that Bill mentioned, it's probably going to be important that at least half of them have some ability to talk to groups. But I think in a group of 6, there's in a very people-oriented economy such as we have, that probably would be true. There'd probably be half of them would be able to do that. That would certainly make for neutrality, and we'd be able to indicate as a board that we're not pressuring either. We're open to different outcomes.
And it happens to be 3 men and 3 women.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Mark, how do you feel about this?
I pretty much said what I've
You
got
wanna
to
say.
say. Yeah, I think what I'm interested in, first of all, I think the people that applied, they're all very, very talented, and I think no one should take offense at anything that any of us have said. I think it's always great to have the kind of talent to work from. I think the challenge is how do you organize it and draw from it and put it in the right structure. I think that's been the challenge. To me, if you're going to have a core group of 5 people, again, I would be looking for the individuals that bring real estate, engineering, architectural, those kinds of experiences to an effort like this, because they're going to be the best ones to tell us what we can use or in terms of working with a consultant and town staff, they're going to be the best ones to help us.
Well, even the other ones on the list aren't that. I mean,
They're not all.
no, I mean,
But out of this group of 6, some of those qualifications that you're looking for are there. I mean, these individuals are Ian Kelly, Andrew Laird, Barbara Lavoine, Joseph Potska, Roby Whitehouse, and Sharon Weimer.
I'd make a motion that we appoint those people that you listed to the committee.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion? Mark? Tracy?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining, okay.
I mean, that was 6 or 5, you went
I
through.
have 6, they can name one as their alternate. You can leave it up to the committee members to do that. Because
We have to approve the charge with that. We also have to approve the charge with that change, making it a 5-member, well, plus.
Well, it's 7,
well,
there's
but
2
there's
already
7.
pre-appointed.
Right,
Yeah.
those
So
2
there's
are already
8.
fixed.
So
right.
out of the other ones, we need to amend the charge to have.
Well, you could make Ms. Whitehouse the alternate as a representative who
From the town?
actually is overseeing the building. I mean,
Right.
so there's a direct connection there. The person is on the committee that understands what, the maintenance obligations are and things like that. And then it's not a direct
Okay.
connection between the person overseeing the building and the committee.
Would you amend your motion?
Well, I didn't make a motion in terms of the charter, in terms of the, yeah. So we need to also approve the charge of the committee that would make it 5 members plus the 2, 1 from the finance committee, 1 from the capital budget, and 1 alternate.
I'd accept a motion to amend the charge.
I second as amended.
I'm asking for motion.
Oh,
I made the motion. I made the
Made the
motion.
motion,
Tracy
and
just
I
did.
would second,
Yeah.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So if I may, I'll just write a memorandum documenting all this so that we have it sort of as we move forward, the committee and all that. Well, I've got it all, don't worry about it.
You have it, okay.
Well, let
I've
me.
checked them off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
why
you
don't
go.
Joyce, you want to just give that?
Joyce.
Because he's got the one, I've checked off the individuals that
Thank
don't
you.
have.
All right.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to accept those members to the committee?
We did that first.
We did that, and that's all set. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent job, Bill, on that presentation.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I thought, well done.
I think as we move forward, we'll have the committee take a look at the schedule and scope and tweak it as they may see fit.
Okay. Selectmen goals. We all met on July 20th over at Simpkins School and put together our goals for the coming year. We had 4 members present at that meeting. Plus, we had Bob with us as well. And
Well, I'd like to move that we accept the goals that we developed that evening and are presented in our packet.
okay, do I have a second on that?
I'd like to raise a question, which is, I certainly accept all these goals. The one thing I noticed, though, that isn't here at all is the whole question of energy. And I'd like us to have as a context for these goals, for anything that involves physical property, that we make sure that we are aware of anything with energy incentives that might partially fund something.
So do you have a specific amendment that you'd like to make for a section on this?
Isn't being a green community, I know that.
That's already that we're as a green
Isn't that kind of
community.
part of what we have to do?
Yeah.
I'm asking the question, I'm not trying to
I thought so.
be funny, I just thought that that was something that.
You mean we do that automatically?
Right, we profess that we are a green community.
Yeah, we did that at town meeting. We adopted
We
the
adopted
whole
that.
concept of being a green community and to work with the Commonwealth to embrace
I
the.
guess I'm thinking way before, I guess I'm thinking have it early in our thinking. Like, it's more theoretical than anything.
I think as long as you're on the board, Joyce, we're always going to be thinking
We're always
about
going to be thinking of energy if you're here with us.
it.
Oh.
All right? Trust me,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
right?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. Okay, we have our goals. And Joyce, appointments.
Yes, and you will be glad to note that I am no longer trying to save paper on this by trying to magnify and not being unable to read on the computer. No, we have them right here on hard copy. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Brian Bragginton Smith to the Recycling and Solid Waste Advisory Committee. The appointment would be for a 3-year unexpired term, which will run through February 2027.
Do I have a,
And William Boyd, both of them are the same, would be the
I'm
same
thinking two
motion.
different motions.
Why, they're the same exact thing. Okay, whatever.
Oh, somebody might have an objection or something to one.
all right, I'll do them individually. So do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And your second one?
I'd like to make a recommendation to appoint William Boyd to the Recycling and Solid Waste Committee. This would be for an appointment, a 3-year unexpired term, which will run through February 2027.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joyce. Upcoming agenda review. We've added to the agenda for October 1st the bid awards for the wastewater. Jeff's going to be coming back with Lori.
I'd like to jump in and broach asking for an appointment at some point to discuss for maybe 10 minutes. I'd like to have a recruiting fair for volunteers for the town committees, and I feel we can think of better times to do that now that the special town meeting date and the special election date are already in
That's
place.
on there. October 1. See the first one?
Discussion volunteer fair for attracting committee members.
That was,
Oh, yes, but I'd
Put that on
just
the
like
list
to say a thing about the dating of it, which
But
is,
we'll discuss that next week.
That's why it's on the
That's on
agenda.
the
It's just on
agenda.
the agenda for
Oh,
us to
yeah.
talk about.
We'll talk about it then, Joyce.
this is like a, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is a question, how best to publicize? We've got the social media and all that. Is it better to have it further into cold weather and have handouts at town meeting or not?
That's all part of the agenda. That would be all
Okay,
part
then.
of the discussion.
Think hard about
Okay.
that, dear colleagues.
Okay. Okay, do we have anything else that we need to add to the October 1?
No,
We're set?
I think we're
How
good.
about the October 29?
I can't wait for the jingles and events update, I'll tell you that.
I personally love the jingle.
Mm.
I heard it and I thought it was great.
Exciting.
Or shall we just move ahead with this? We've got October 1 set. We can also review again for October 29. Okay. All right. Individual items. Mark?
I noticed on the agenda tonight that we had a wastewater update, but then on our agenda, it said road construction. And was that a mistake?
yeah, it originally started as the communication for, it should said wastewater construction,
Okay.
but there was just so much happening that we morphed it into a full wastewater. It should have said wastewater, not road.
Okay, I just wanted to raise that because I was a little bit confused, because when I came into this, I was thinking, okay, where's the road construction? And we obviously talked about it, but it was really a much more robust discussion of wastewater. I get nervous sometimes, particularly if we're making decisions or deliberating on some aspects of it that we haven't properly posted it, so hopefully, when we want to talk about road construction, it might be good just to make sure that we have it as wastewater and road construction, make it as broad as we can. I'm sure that was just an oversight.
And I'm sure that we'll have it all detailed for our October 1 meeting, that wastewater will be back on the agenda. Okay. Any other items? Tracy?
No, thank you.
Joyce?
No, thank you.
Okay. Town Administrator, Bob.
Yes, I'll try to be brief, but there's kind of a big one that, at your last meeting, we had the superintendent had a nice discussion, introductory on the Margaret E. Small School, and he had indicated at that time that he had received, word that the MSBA, at least on a preliminary basis, decided that Yarmouth is still alive, and they were conducting the next day a site visit, and that he invited me to attend the site visit with the SBA with him, which I did, and I wanted to kind of report back to the board because the MSBA is conducting their investigation as to whether they want to allow the ME Small project to be accepted this year into their program, which would initiate the process where we would do the feasibility study. And, they were advocating strongly, and I think there may be a little bit of misalignment with the thinking of the way we discussed it last week and some of the discussion directly from the MSBA, not the superintendent's office. He was having that discussion, I thought was excellent. He was very well in tune with what the selectmen's thought was. But the SBA wants more feedback from the town to determine whether they feel we're ready for this project. And I wanted to kind of
Really?
let you know what the issue is, that when we discussed this last week, the board was clear that you'd like a discussion in the feasibility and an analysis of the potential consolidation of that ME Small School into the Station Avenue School.
As an option.
As an option.
Right.
Now, my understanding of that option would be that would avoid the costs of constructing a whole new facility, and that we would just make some fairly minor retrofits to fit that in. And so I initially went into the meeting with that in mind to kind of advocate, yes, we want to conduct a feasibility study, we want to examine the Station Avenue site, we want to examine another site, we want to have the data, and we want to compare it as a community. And it was interesting to me that the SBA at that meeting was strongly pushing for us to consider what they considered a consolidation of the elementary schools. But in my view, that what they see as a consolidation is not simply accommodating those students at the present site. It would be a feasibility study to completely redo the Station Avenue School together with the ME Small School to create one very large elementary school. And I just felt that their concept on that involved creating a project. Let's be plain, the Station Avenue School, in our view, right, as we've always discussed it, is not ripe for a complete redo, that it's only 20 years old, that I think a lot of us were under the impression that, we just bit off a pretty big chunk with the intermediate middle school, and that we need to solve the ME Small School, but we're not in the market for another, 850 child school that we, bring up to complete modern standards. That would be another 100 million. And they mentioned that. And so I have to meet again with the superintendent to kind of discuss this and get some feedback back to the SBA. And I think it's important to bring up to the board because, they may very well decide not to. We're at the cusp of being in this program. Now, I don't want to, give them the idea that we're legitimately considering redoing the entire Station Avenue School, along with expanding its, size to incorporate the other school, when that's not really what we're looking at. So, wanted to bring that to the board to let you know that. It's something that you can discuss at your next agenda. I don't want to be adding items to your agenda, but it's the type of thing, I wanted to mention it now because they said by, middle, late October, they were hoping to get a sense from the town of what our appetite was for taking on this feasibility study to direct the project. And so it may be that, we need Dr. Smith back in here to talk about it. He certainly, he's been great with me. I will say, we had a meeting, we met with SBA. I think the both of us were a little bit surprised to the extent that they were pushing for the so-called consolidated school. And he's indicated strongly he'd like to meet with me and get the sense for what, the town's feelings are. And so I think that we should discuss that and be able to articulate sort of our vision. And I would, recommend that if we're not ready to take on, whether we combine Station Avenue and ME Small at a different site or combine the two for a major project at the site, that's not really what we bargained for with the ME Small School, that we're looking to solve the ME Small School, but not the combined new elementary school that's all encompassing. And I encourage you to think that through, and I'd like to have it on an agenda so you can kind of give me a little direction, and then, we'll go back and express, those issues and concerns, what we're ready for, because that's what they keep asking, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? And we tell them, yeah, we're ready for it, but we're not ready to rebuild the entire elementary. Yeah, so that's an issue. I thought it was
It's an issue that
fascinating.
needs to be on our October 1st agenda.
Yeah, I think so, and that way at least I could go back and look, if the SBA decides that, well, if they're not gonna redo both of these schools, then we're not gonna let them in the program. Well, then, I think that's something that we confront, but I certainly don't wanna sit there and say that, oh yeah, we're gonna do this feasibility study that's gonna combine both of these schools into a super school and have them reserve $100 million for us, because I don't see us going that direction, but that's where we're at, and I'm just bringing you up to speed of the things that we talked about. And I was totally floored. I didn't think that was coming, but when they say consolidation, that's what they're talking about.
So we need to have that on the
Yep.
agenda.
I think
October
I
1st.
think we're all on board.
And see, have
Agenda
Dr.
item.
West come back and
Have him come.
come talk to us.
Yep.
And
Like a case of, for somebody with a hammer or an agency with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
He may want to bring somebody from the school committee with him here, too. I think we want to be inclusive, right?
Right,
Yep.
absolutely.
Good point.
And another upcoming agenda item.
It's just key, because this is where the communication went wrong the last time.
Right.
With the combined school, which is what
Right.
happened. They took from what our vision was into something different. And this is exactly what happened.
Right. And I think to some degree, they may have been influenced by the school building assistance program. and
Oh, yeah.
Covering going into their agenda rather than sticking to what
But
was
don't-
agreed upon.
Nail on the head, that's exactly what they want, that's how they operate, and what they're looking to create.
That's what the state's goal is, I think, is to start coming in and having combined schools, so that it's a 1-1-1-1.
I mean, I wouldn't be coming to you now if I was,
No,
it
I'm
was
glad-
clear.
I'm glad you brought it up, and I think-
It was crystal clear to me that the agenda from the SBA would be for that, a project of that nature.
Yeah, I think we're naive to think that they don't have an agenda of their own. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up.
We'll be happy to discuss.
What else you got on your agenda?
Okay, I just want to say that another upcoming agenda item is I'd like to put a labor update to discuss. We're at a point now where we've got, there's a new public safety contract, this one, the firefighters, we're commencing the negotiations on that, so I would need to just, do the introductory sessions on that with the board prior to us
Sounds good.
getting ahead of ourselves.
Right?
And we'll put that
Madam
on.
Vice Chair,
Absolutely.
agenda item.
And
We could put that on for October 29th, or do you feel that should be brought up on
Is that a
October
public
1st?
meeting?
No.
No, that, it would be an executive session.
Strategy for.
And you know what, if time permits, you know, we could introduce the topic on the 1st and come back on the 29th. I'd almost like to get a
Put
brief.
an executive session on the
On the 1st, like if we spend a little time, just so we can kind of see what the lay of the land is, and we may need, you know, some time to, you know, develop some additional information and come back and discuss it. We'll be discussing it a lot, I'm certain. And I just wanted to say a third thing was an interesting session that both Bill and I attended last week was the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce Developers Roundtable. And it was an interesting roundtable because this one was geared towards the business leaders, the banking leaders on Cape Cod, but also municipal officials. And talk about agendas, you know, I personally have, you know, a very strong agenda in addressing this group. You know, a lot of people like to criticize the municipal governments for their approach to being, you know, against virtually everything. But here in Yarmouth, you know, we've worked tremendously hard to put in place the mixed-use, village-oriented, sort of growth center zoning bylaw in the commercial area that really has been unsuccessful in attracting village-style, mixed-use development. And a lot of the people, you know, that we discuss it with always say, well, you know, we can't get any financing for any of the commercial components and stuff. So I thought we represented Yarmouth quite well. We made a lot of inroads into the banking community that had indicated that they have programs that would finance commercial construction. And you know, we're sort of broadening our horizons in, you know, taking on a little bit of a Cape-wide leadership role in terms of representing what we've got going on in our community, what the new zoning is, how that would work. I mean, obviously, you know, you have all the issues associated with the Cape Cod Commission, and, you know, things of that nature. But I felt it was important. It was a good meeting for us to, you know, some of the people were at the meeting. Weren't really aware of what our viewpoint towards that village-oriented or familiar with the town zoning. And some of the, you know, people, well, I won't get into, you know, but a lot of people had viewpoints that weren't necessarily accurate. And so anyways, very interesting meeting. There's a lot more to go with that. And I think some of the data that, you know, we can bring back helps inform our comprehensive planning process. And, you know, the idea is to articulate strongly that vision that we have for the town and be able to advocate, you know, for it. So.
Well, there's an agenda item, huh? Ready
Yeah,
for that one?
I think to Bob's point, one of the advantages we have is we do the Route 28 streetscape project. We start looking toward the private sector side of the property line and try to tie in their projects and their investment in that. So have them help us make investments in the corridor. That a lot of people focus on zoning, but if the developer knows the work that they have to do, it's a lot easier for the developer to move forward rather than spending 18 months trying to figure out what that is. So with the streetscape project is going to be important for redevelopment, I think.
Well, didn't we authorize some funding to be set aside to do some economic development work? At some point, we need to get an update on all that.
Right.
Right?
And an employee.
And an employee.
Right.
Which we're interviewing for now.
Well, that's good. So that's another potential agenda item. Madam Vice Chair.
So
Do
a
we have
couple of
anything-
interesting items. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn our meeting tonight at 9:18.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all.